Is hunting truly saving Africa's wildlife, or is it just fueling more controversy? Today, we're diving into this debate with Andy Buchanan, host of This is Africa. Raised in the African bush, Andy brings a lifetime of experience and a unique perspective on how hunting, conservation, and local communities intersect across the continent. His show goes beyond the adrenaline of the hunt, exploring the complex realities of managing Africa's wildlife and how hunters are often on the front lines of these efforts. We'll also discuss Andy's podcast, the difference between This is Africa and TI-85, and explore the power of social media as Andy has built a massive following online. So get ready for an eye-opening conversation that will challenge what you think you know about hunting's role in protecting Africa's most iconic species. So with that said, Andy, welcome to the Salt Lick Worldwide podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, all good, man. I'm just praying that our internet connection holds for the entire duration. But yeah, I'm very happy to be on your guys' podcast.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, like you and I talked, this has been several weeks, maybe even a month or more in the making, trying to get our schedules to work out. But I'm glad we can make it. And fingers crossed that Elon can keep that Starlink up and running for the duration of this thing.
Yeah, we just had a big storm blowing, so we'll see how it goes.
So to kick things off to our audience that may not be familiar with your work, and I have a feeling everybody that's going to watch this has watched TIA at some point in time. I know before, when I started going to Africa, it only took a few years later, you really busted onto the scene. And I may not have watched every single episode that you've ever put out, but 99% of them I think I have. So we've been watching for a long time now. But based on that, can you just start by telling the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of how growing up in Africa has influenced your work?
Well, I didn't know it, but obviously just the way I grew up, I was on a farm. My father was a big hunter. And whenever we were done with growing the tobacco and the maize and the wheat and whatever, instead of going on holiday or beach holidays or to another country, we'd just go down to the Zambezi Valley and hunt and fish for a month on what was then known as the citizens packages. You could go and buy them at auction and go and enjoy, take your tents and your trackers and your all your meat cutting tools and your guns and go and camp in the wilderness where there's, the big five. And, I was 2, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old doing this kind of thing. And then we had game on the farm as well, and snakes and birds and everything. So it was just from a young age, I was fascinated with nature, and I always watched documentaries growing up, Steve Irwin and the boys. And yeah, it's kind of, I didn't really plan on becoming, a TV personality or a hunting expert or anything like that. It just kind of, life just led me there. I just always followed my dream of, being in nature. That's all I really wanted. And this is where I landed up. And now I've got the TV show, This is Africa, and I take clients out hunting. So yeah, that's pretty much how we got here.
Nice. And you've hunted across so many different regions in Africa. So how does that diversity of the continent's landscapes and the wildlife how has that shaped your experiences both personally and professionally?
I mean, it's always fascinating going to a new place, like you guys, if you wherever you go hunting and it's a new place, everything's fascinating, not just the animals, but the grass and the different birds and what mice live there. And so, every African country has its different appeal, and also then there's the cultures that come into it. So I have found myself gravitating towards those kind of safaris where, it's a new place. So, it's kind of led me into being an expert in, the whole of Africa as opposed to just one specific place.
Yeah, and I think, and I am gonna go down a rabbit hole right to start with, Paul. So here, I watched an episode recently. It was an elephant hunt that you did. I don't remember what country you were in, but male hunter dispatched the elephant. Next day, you guys came back to take care of the animals, get it out. it was so cool because you have a unique approach to the way you do things. So you actually took the time. All the villagers were around, and you guys were dividing up the meat, and that you had the females on one side and the males on the other side.
Yeah.
And to the average viewer, even me, I didn't notice it, and you kind of panned around, and then you took the time to explain why the females are on one side and why the males were on the other. And that's most people, especially from a hunting perspective, nobody takes the time to think about that.
Yeah. So when I was young, I was very fortunate that my father would allow me to go and stay in the village for a week on end. Often they didn't know where I was, but they knew I was safe there somewhere in the village. So I'd sleep there. I'd eat with the people. I'd go into the bush with the little kids, and we'd do our things in the bush. Like setting traps and trying to catch birds and mice and rabbits and whatever we could get our hands on, and that was where I learned the culture of the local people, and I'm still fascinated to this day. I mean, a lot of my friends that are white tell me that I was definitely a black man in my past because, my interactions with black people is so seamless, and it's not a very common thing. But yeah, I owe it a lot of that to my father. He was wise in the way he raised me, because obviously living in Africa, the better you can get on with the people who own the land and own the continent, basically, then the better off you'll be. And it served me many times. I mean, even like if I get stopped at a police roadblock and I've maybe done something wrong, been straddling the line or overtaken where I shouldn't have, just 2 minutes of talking with the guy in the local language. And one of the things here in Zimbabwe that you do is hold hands. So you hold this guy's hand, complete stranger. You hold his hand and you talk to him. By the time you're done talking to him, that guy has felt your vibes. He knows everything. So it's just simple things like that I learned very young that helped me now. With doing this wildlife thing, it's so intertwined with local people.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about your show that I think is unique, obviously, we're in this industry and we get the opportunity to hunt all over the place, and we're filming our hunts, and we're going to be on network TV now and going through that. And for years and years and years, I dreamt of going to Africa when I was younger, and I've watched everything about it. Most of the shows are just a hunt, right? You don't showcase just the hunt. You take the time to stop and talk about the local flora and fauna and what this snake is and what that bird is. And so while your show is a hunting show, it's more like watching a episode of National Geographic, in my opinion. And it's such a cool take on it. Every other show in the world focuses just on the hunt and the spot and stalk and the interview afterward or the camp, and then you're done. Like you take so in your show, you just kind of take people on a wild ride and introduce them to all these new cool things, where depending on whatever conservancy you're hunting on, it's different. And it's just really cool and unique the way you do it.
Well, thanks for that. It's true. I know. So it's something that people might not know, but I do all the editing for my show as well. So when I'm editing, don't get me wrong, I love editing the hunting, but it's very mundane. It's very, here's the stalk, here's the setup, here's the shot, here's the animal. And it's very difficult to differentiate yourself with any other show. But when I'm editing and I come across the little pieces that I've done where it's not hunting, oh my goodness, I love editing that stuff. I love it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is where that happened. And then I love those little pieces. I absolutely love them. And yeah, I think if you're trying to make it somehow different, then any little thing you can add in that's not hunting is definitely cool, especially if you can do it with a bit of humor. I get frustrated sometimes because obviously I spend a lot of time behind the camera, but when I'm filming a PH or something and we walk past something and I say, hey buddy, please, can you just, tell the audience about this? You know how interesting this is. I know how interesting this is, but at the same time, I can't really film myself. I can't always film myself. And then they say, oh no, we got to find this animal. And you're like, well, it's only going to take 10 seconds. We've been walking for 10 hours, but Okay. Sometimes it is
Right.
frustrating like that because you miss a lot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just super unique. And I know I do all the editing too. So we've just recently hired an editor, but I've edited everything, and it's obviously morphed over the years to where I like to my especially this new season that's going to come out. We spent 7 weeks in South Africa this year filming, and the series is going to be called South Africa Unleashed. And we took a bunch of first timers over with us, and we really dove into the culture and everything. And to me, I can edit a hunt in no time, right? It's easy. You got the spot and stalk, you got the setup, you've got the shot, you've got the recovery, you've got the interview, and a little bit of B-roll here, and it's mundane as crap, right? And I can go through all the footage in sequence, sync up B cams, A cams together, make sure I've got it all, and boom, boom, boom. But for me, I something clicked one day. I don't know what it was, and I don't know. I was watching somebody. It could have even been your show. It might have been Meat Eater, it might have been somebody, and they did a good job at telling a story, right? So it wasn't just the hunt; they were telling a story. And once I saw that, I'm like, you know what? This is going to take a lot longer, and I've got to think about it. But before I just get on the camera to film, I've got to think about everything, right? How I want to set the shots up, what do I want to do, what do I want to stop and talk about, and make it personal and really tell a story. And once I did that, it takes a lot longer. But I think for me, I feel a whole lot better about the content that's come out recently compared to what we did when we first started. Because back then it was just run and gun, and you showed okay, if we get 5 animals on this episode down, then great. But that's what, everybody does that. And if you got to do something different, or you're going to just be roped into that same group that does the same shit. I mean, frankly, how many times can you film an impala hunt and make it unique?
Yeah, you have to find a way.
spot.
You have to find a way. So the things I look for is that you got the characters, right? The more someone can learn about each character that's there, the better. So your characters, you might even find something interesting that happened when they were a kid, or something that's and then obviously then you get the woman appeal. As soon as you get a woman on it, everything suddenly becomes interesting, especially to men. So yeah, it's either the you got to find something in the people or in the nature, or you got to find some little extra stories, to spice it up.
So Andy, what inspired you to create This Is Africa? And one of the things I noticed about your show, you really focus heavily on conservation. So first, it's a two-part question. What inspired you to create This Is Africa? And then what inspired you to highlight the conservation side of the industry?
So This Is Africa came about when Larry Wysoon and Blake Barnett from Trailing the Hunter's Moon asked me to organize them a hunt in Zambia, which I did. And then I offered them to come along as a cameraman. And they were like, yeah, sure. And then they had an American cameraman there. And then I filmed the hunt. And when I saw the production made, I thought, well, they only used my footage. And I felt like I could have done a better job. So that's when I was like, hold on a second. TV is not out of reach. And then the conservation thing, I've always been a conservation minded person. Like I'm not a big, money that doesn't mean that much to me. I mean, I get it now that I'm 35. It's starting to hit home that you got to kind of make money to live, and one day you're gonna have to not work and all that kind of thing. But what drives me is just my heart and my passion for nature. So I mean, it's only going to come out in my work. I don't even think about that side of it, to be honest. It's just something I love and I'm interested in, so I put it in. And the fact that it might teach some people some things is a bonus, I suppose. I never really planned on it.
Yeah, and I know that's a problem with especially with the far left and the greenies and everything. They do everything they possibly can, the anti-hunters, to disrupt hunting across the world. It's not just in the States; it's also really bad for you guys. And to shed a good light on it and bring conservation into it. And what most people don't realize is hunters are the biggest contributor to conservation that there are. Yeah, while photo safaris play, a small role on your continent, it's not nearly the amount of money generated that hunters do. Not even close. It's fractions, comparatively speaking. But yeah, and we're super passionate about it as well. But well, so here's one. I'm gonna hit you right off the bat. So when I started watching the show, you had your sister on the show. So Michelle was on the show, and
Yes.
now all of a sudden she's not. What's going on with that?
So we started off together, and I was kind of in charge of
And is his
the
name
film.
Chad by chance?
Yes, Chad Allen. Yes, yeah, yeah. So my sister and I started off working together, and we were 50-50 partners in the whole thing. 50-50 on the TV show and 50-50 on the booking of safaris, which was Buchanan Hunts at that time. And I was in charge of more of the TV show, and like making sure we know where the clients are going, which areas are the best for them, this and that. And she was in charge more of like the actual selling and the money side and all that, and it was 50-50. And then everything was going smoothly, and but as happens in business and partnerships, someone once told me the worst ships are partnerships, um, because they often sink. And we I didn't feel like I was being treated as a 50-50 partner, and that's when I decided, what, I don't actually need someone else to do this. I can do it on my own. And she moved off to America and lives in America, and and I'm still here. And then so that was Buchanan Hunts was the booking side. So now to answer your question, the difference between This Is Africa. So This Is Africa is the TV show, and TIA5 is the booking side. So that's a different company that deals with the clients that I take on safari. So that's why Michelle's no longer there.
So I see, boys, I got into that drama right away.
Right, get into the thick of it. Yeah, no,
And
it's funny because a lot of people will, they still. I'll get a message saying, "Oh, we've booked a hunt with you," and I say, "Well, are you really? Like, I've never heard your name or seen this email address or whatever." And they're like, "Yeah. No, we have." And they don't realize that, Buchanan Hunts and This Is Africa is no longer the same, because it's my surname. You know what I mean? Andy Buchanan. Now, and
right.
everyone sees the banner Buchanan Hunts, and they immediately think, "Oh, This Is Africa," and Andy, but it's not.
Yeah, and I'm definitely stealing that little quote, Paul. You should have wrote that down too. Yeah, there's two times.
Yeah.
The partnership quote, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's funny. I also I had like a brainwave a while ago. It's keying phrases, certain things that people say. I think it's awesome. You get so many good ones, kind of t-shirt slogans. Hey.
I feel like every guest we have on, there's always this, and we may not be there yet, or that might have been it, but there's always this one thing that sticks with us, like this some kind of weird quote or something that comes up that's their individual saying that we kind of integrate. And I think we all use now. We steal it from everybody. There's always one from each show that comes out that we always end up stealing.
Hey, 100%. Everyone always says you shouldn't steal things from people, but everybody does it all the time. I mean, if even the way I make my films, I've been watching documentary filmmaking for a long time, and I pick up things from different people all the time. I think it's a clever way to learn and grow, and I see it on YouTube and stuff. I see other guys starting up YouTube channels. I think I was one of the first African hunting guys that started a YouTube channel years ago, and but now I see everyone else is starting, and there's nothing wrong with it. But a lot of guys are actually like stealing my way of doing things, so it's pretty cool. I think it's and also makes you try and keep ahead of the pack as such.
Well, to me, when somebody tries to mimic something that I do, that's the biggest form of flattery there is. Especially from stuff. Now, if you go and steal something, if you're, and I've not run into it yet, but there's several other content creators that I know that have, where they'll just be watching a random episode of something, and then they see something and they pause and rewind it, and like, what the was that? And I'm like, oh, that's B-roll that I shot, 2 years ago that I put online. It's this episode. And here, yeah, people steal other people's shit. It's a nasty world that you're in. You got to be careful.
I know. I took a picture of a charging buffalo many years ago. And I actually stopped to get off the vehicle to take a pee. You won't believe it. And I walked 10 meters. I'm not one of those guys who can just pee against the tire with everyone watching. So I walked over 10 meters away, taking a pee, and I had my camera on my neck. Here comes this buffalo running out of the bush. And I picked up my camera and I snapped him. Thank goodness it stopped. But it was an awesome picture. And then it was actually J. Allen Smith had it on one of his YouTube what is it? The thumbnail, So I was
thumbnail.
Hey, buddy, surely you can't be taking my picture. Anyway.
Diving back in. So, Andy, what are some of the biggest misconceptions you've encountered regarding, hunting and wildlife management in Africa?
Well, the biggest misconception is that hunting is killing wildlife. Is destroying the entire population of wildlife in Africa. That is just complete and utter rubbish. It's like banging your head against the wall trying to explain to people. I often hear people saying that animals need to be controlled. And that's the reason why we hunt in Africa. It's not the reason we hunt in Africa. It's not because the animals need to be controlled. The reason hunting needs to happen in Africa is for the money. That money is what allows the animals to stay in their wild habitat. Because underneath those animals' feet is fertile soil and gold and diamonds and lithium and natural gases and all these things that the government wants to take out or farm. And if they take those minerals, if they start mining or they start farming, the animals have got nowhere to stay there. They won't survive that in any shape or form. Everything, the trees, the birds, the insects, the water, everything will be destroyed. So it's our one draw card that we have as hunters, as conservationists. The one thing we say, hey, but if you take your gold and you take your lithium and you destroy all this land, once it's gone, what are you going to do? Where at least with hunting, we can say, hey, we're going to hunt this many animals this year. And by next year, those animals have been replenished by the next ones coming along. And we keep doing it. And every year you're earning these lots and lots of money from hunters, because hunting is a hell of an expensive game. And that's the one thing we have to, use against the people wanting to destroy these wild places. So, when people say, no, we need to control the animals, that's why we need to hunt in Africa, it's complete and utter rubbish. The animals will control themselves. But we need the money. We need the money. And there's no replacement for the money yet, other than farming and mining, but those are not renewable. So at the moment, with all the hunting still going good and everybody coming to hunt, and it's still working out. But so the biggest misconception is that hunting is destroying the animals, where people don't understand. It doesn't matter whether you left wing, right wing, whatever. People just don't understand. It's the money. That's all. So, I always say, I'm not the biggest trophy dude, if I shoot something or whatever, and I really like the horns or whatever, I don't mind, like, putting my garden in the flower bed or whatever. Like, I love it. That's cool. And it's I feel like it's a natural state or whatever. But, even if a guy comes and all he wants is the trophies, all he wants to do is shoot that big lion or that big elephant or whatever, regardless of his motive or why is he doing it. The fact is, he's paying the money. There's no one who's coming to hunt for free. And that money that guy gives is going to a good place. So I don't care why he's doing it. It works.
And money's it's unfortunate but true. I mean, that's what makes the world turn. And unfortunately, and like you said, without hunters, right? So if that all of a sudden you couldn't hunt, then the government's going to take advantage of those resources, and the farmers are going to cut down all the trees, and they're going to convert it to farmland, and where it's profitable for them. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a it's a it's a finicky finite situation too. It goes both
Yeah.
ways. But when you were talking, it just reminded me of something. So when we always, as hunters, there's in every hunt, there's always like a story that sticks out or something. So you're at are you season 7 now or season 8 with This Is Africa?
We're going into season 7. I'm super excited about season 7 is cool. There's some really, really cool stuff that happened.
So you're season 7 in. So you've been years and years and years, and all these clients. What do you have a specific episode or like a memorable experience from one of those that stands out above all else? Like something that you go back to, man, that was just the best one we've ever done. This was such a unique experience. Do you have one of those that stands out that you put your finger on?
Nothing stands out like really. I mean, I remember once we were hunting in Zambia and we were in the middle of nowhere and we saw these kids running away from we don't know what, but I stopped the vehicle and I said, we need to go and see what's there because the way they were running, they were doing something wrong. And sure enough, we went there and they'd been setting bird traps. And, it just reminded me so much of when I was a kid, because we used to do the same thing. I know exactly how those traps were made and, the location they were and whatever. We used to do the same thing on the farm, which we weren't allowed to do. My dad was very clear that we were not allowed to set traps for animals, but we used to do it. I was with the village kids and it was fun. And they were just doing exactly the same thing. And also for them, it's, it's also some extra protein to put in the pot at night. And yeah, I mean, like I said, those small things that happen on the side, they are my favorite pieces. But I don't know. It's funny, when you do something for so long, it becomes normal. So, even if I'm with a client, I understand that it's like it's mind blowing or whatever that he's experiencing. But for me, it's not. This is quite normal. All these things that happen. But yeah, you do get into situations. One of them was this year. We were following a wounded buffalo that the client hadn't quite shot properly, and it was his first time on a buffalo hunt, and he didn't quite realize that I think he felt pressure and he shot when no one was told him to shoot or anything, but he felt like he could do it. But I think when you haven't hunted dangerous game a lot, you don't really understand the dangers and whatever of taking a maybe shot. We all might take a maybe shot on a deer or an impala or whatever, but when it comes to buffalo and lion and elephant and leopard especially, those things always seem to get wounded. But and we followed it, and we went into this position, and like normally I can be like, okay, well, I'm watching this bush, I can see maybe it's going to come from here, maybe it's going to come from there. But we got into this spot, and I don't know why, but my hairs on my back of my neck just stood, and I was like, oh, and I trust my sixth sense, and I honestly didn't know where it could come from because there was a patch of long grass just to my right, and then edging that was a big green bush that could easily have been holding the buffalo, and then immediately behind to the left was another big green bush, and then this side was more long grass, and then this side there was like a dip where I couldn't see into, and we walked into here, and I was like, oh, no. But the buffalo didn't come; he wasn't there. But it's times like that I remember the feeling, because I like, when you've been doing it for a long time, you get used to the feeling of being afraid. So you looks like you're not afraid. Obviously, you're still afraid. But I felt like I was afraid, and I felt like I looked afraid as well. So yeah, there are moments like that that do stick into your head. Yeah, another one was that we went to the villagers called us and said, guys, please, can you come and help us? And we were doing an elephant hunt. And it was a tuskless cow hunt. So we went to this village, and they called us. They said the elephants have been raiding our crops. And sure enough, when we got there, I mean, whole fields, massive fields, acres and acres were just destroyed. And so then we were like, well, where are these elephants? And they were like, they're in that big bush there. So we said, okay. So we went and we followed the tracks, and it was like highways, big highways, paths going into this thick jess bush. And we were walking in there, and you could just hear the elephants screaming and breaking branches. And judging from the tracks and the paths going in there must have been 300-400 elephants in there. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever been up close to an elephant, but it gets your adrenaline going big time. And we walked into the edge of this thing, and we started going in, and we got in about 15 paces. And it was my client that I'd booked on this hunt. And I said to the PH, I said, we're not going in there. This guy is his first African safari. Okay. He came on his first African safari. He wanted an elephant. I mean, he wanted a leopard and an elephant and a buffalo on his first hunt. So I said, okay, we can do this. We can make it happen, but we're going to go slowly. We're not doing any Rambo stuff here. And so we got a nice leopard. He shot very well. He shot his buffalo very well. And we were going in for this elephant. And I said to the PH, 1, I'm not comfortable going in there. 2, I'm not comfortable. This is going to end well. So, I initiated the conversation, but we all pulled out of there. But also just walking in there and hearing those screams and all the branches breaking, and I just thought, if our wind changes now, they're going to hunt us down. Because also, those elephants have been in the fields all night, so they've had coals thrown at them, they've had pots and pans banging, they've had dogs barking at them, they've had people chasing them, trying to chase them. These things are wound up. And they know, elephants are clever. They know they're not supposed to be in the villages there. So they are more aggressive. They know. And it's passed down from generation of elephant to generation. They know. We here in this thick jess bush, we're safe. And if anyone comes in here, they just squash them. So yeah, we're not going in there.
Yeah, I would be out too. We did we did a buffalo hunt this year with, I went with Mike, and it was a bow hunt, spot and stalk buffalo with a bow. And I was the backup gun with our PH. And I can tell you, you get those buffalo in that thick shit, and it sounds like, oh, this is kind of creepy. You're looking to your right, you're looking to your left, like, oh, this son of a bitch could be anywhere. Like, I remember at Mike, you must have looked back at me and thought I was the biggest ever. We got to within like 5 or 6 yards of this buff that was bedded down in this really thick thorny and he just came out like a freight train, right? Just right over trees, everything. And it scared the living shit out of me. And I'm supposed to be the backup gun, right? So I'm supposed to be the guy that's big and brave and tough. And I got this guy. This buffalo comes out. I nearly my pants.
I think you fell, didn't you?
I fell backwards. Yeah, I was looking for a tree to get behind. Like, I am definitely not qualified to be a backup gun for anybody. Like, I'm not even qualified to be on the camera at that point in time. And it was that kind of spooky. And I've watched a lot of buffalo hunts and seen the way they go down, but just where we're Northwest Province, it was just super thick. They could have been anywhere. The wind was swirling like crazy. And meanwhile, our PH, he's just so calm and collected. And, Chris, we've hunted with several times, and he looks back and he laughs at me. I'm like, you, I'm out. Like, this is not for me. And it happened twice. Was it the same day, Staffen, or?
I think it was.
Yeah, it happened again the same day. I'm like, boys, I am out. This is not for me. Like, to get up close and personal, it's not like you can get within 40 yards or 50 yards of this buffalo with a bow. You got to get close. So, even Staffen shooting a big, heavy setup, he's still not going to be able to make that shot at 50 yards. You got to get in close. And it was so
the problem
thick.
was every time that we got close, they were always in this thick ass. You can't get a shot. So, and you don't know what direction they're coming out. So it's like you don't know. So you're just sitting there waiting, and then sounds like semis coming through the forest there and the weeds, and you don't know what they're doing. So, and all I've got's a bow. But yeah, no, it was interesting.
And we've already pissed these buffalo off, right? So it's the same herd that we're on back to back to back. We just got to, and so they're already pissed off. And we're like, this is bad. Like, no, I'm out. I am no longer the backup gun. Somebody else could be go. And the gun and for whatever reason too, it was a Winchester, it was a 300 Win Mag, I believe. Yes, it was that Bergara, and I've got a kind of a customish Bergara set up with this super long barrel and this can on it, bipods and everything. And the thing's like a boat anchor. It's heavy shit.
It's like 7 foot long.
But like at 1,000 yards, it's a tack driver, right? So that's my long range gun. But that was the biggest caliber gun that I had. I'm like, so I'm toting this 2x4 along, through this bush, and I'm supposed to be the backup gun. You can't shoulder it, right? It's just too heavy to shoulder. It's meant to be on shit sticks or on a bipod.
It weighs as much as you do.
I'm like, this is stupid. So we finally decided that was enough of that and moved on. Actually, I decided that I was out.
That bullet's not going to do much either, to be honest. Yeah. That caliber's not really the right tool for the job.
Oh, we were just going to piss it off, so we were going to do anyway.
Yeah, well, I think Chris had was it a 404 Jeffrey maybe?
Yeah,
something. I think. So the PH, he was ready to go, but all I had was the 300 Win Mag. I'm like, that's it's like shooting an elephant with a BB gun is all that is.
You'd have been better to throw it at it.
No, for sure. I mean, I think it's definitely one of the reasons that people do come back to Africa, because there is that danger element, and you got to be on your guard. I think it can be also become quite addictive. A lot of the professional hunters and guys that do this kind of work are also guys who've had past military lives, especially the generation above us. When there was more war around for the average Joe. So they enjoy that kick as well. It's part of hunting, I suppose. It adds a little different dimension when the animal can also kill you.
Well, see, that's kind of why I was wanting to go after buffalo this year, because that's kind of where I'm at. I've hunted a lot of stuff, and I think I kind of lost that feeling. You know what I mean? And I kind of
the adrenaline rush.
The adrenaline rush, and I was like, maybe Sean and I were talking one day, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to try to shoot a buffalo this year with a bow, and so that's how it kind of transpired that way. But yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to feel it a little bit more than I did. I felt it, but I didn't. It happened too quick. You know what I mean? So it didn't really get to soak in. I'm like, oh shit, I just about died.
I felt it,
kind of thing.
I absolutely
you felt it, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. But yeah, I understand what you're saying when you're talking about that piece.
Yeah. So there's also, like, when it comes to buffalo hunting, there's different types of buffalo hunting you can do. I don't want to bash South Africa or whatever, but it's not somewhere I would recommend for a buffalo hunt, because there's a lot of the areas, there's no lions in the areas. There's no like real poaching that goes on, or I don't know. Sometimes they can be more used to people. Depends where you go. Obviously, there are some very seriously wild buffalo hunting to be done there, but generally speaking, a lot of the farms and stuff, the buffalo kind of know what's going on. Although, you know what, a wounded buffalo, doesn't matter where you get him, whether he's in South Africa or Tanzania or wherever, he's still going to come for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's, and a buffalo is, he's not always aggressive, 99.9% of the time he's going to run away. But when the problem comes is if it's wounded now, that's now where buffalo is a problem. Especially ones that are wounded badly, not badly, but like more wounded, to the point where they feel like they can't really get away. Those are the ones that, and I remember before my first buffalo charge, I wanted to witness a buffalo charge. And then when I saw my first buffalo charge, I was like, oh my goodness, that's That's
Never
nothing
want to do that again.
No. When I follow a wounded buffalo, I'm like, please don't charge.
It looks great on camera, but you get scared while it's going on.
Right.
I know, and most of the time, as a cameraman, unless you're constantly rolling, it's hard to catch it because often you'll be walking for 5-6 hours following this blood spore and like, it's monotonous. You're thinking of whatever your girlfriend's behind or whatever else.
Well, Sean and I we did a bow camp this year, and we were in a blind, and within, I don't know, 10 minutes, like, how many come out, Sean? 15 buffalo?
No, it was much more than that. I think.
They come out like it was like a 7-yard shot, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I said, this isn't what I want. I didn't want to shoot a buffalo out of a blind. I want to spot stock one.
I want to shoot one out of a blind.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you got to be careful. You got to remember the guy that's taking you hunting. He also wants you to kill a buffalo so that he gets his money in his pocket.
Right.
And I've taken so many people on safaris that have had sad previous, like you said, being in a blind or whatever. One example is a gentleman. He shot his buffalo, but he came to me and was like, dude, I shot a buffalo, but yes, I feel like I was robbed, I was talked into it in the moment and whatever. So I said, well, I promise I won't do that. And I gave him an experience that, and now, I mean, it just keeps coming back and back and back. But yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, you got to be careful where you go, who you go with. That's honestly also another reason why I like booking hunts for people, is because I know there's so many people out there that will just take your money and not really care about the experience you got,
Yeah. Well, and to clarify a little. Yeah, I get it. And just to clarify too, for what Mike was talking about, we got to camp, and I think that was the moment. That might have even been our first sit. He had a buffalo on his list, and actually, Mike never has a list when he goes to Africa. He does because I make one for him, just send to the outfitter that we're hunting with. But he's one of those opportunistic guys. But buffalo was legit a priority for him this year. So, and we went to a bow camp, and there were some other things we were going to hunt, and we were going to kind of co-film. I would film for him, he would film for me, so we could both be in the blind together, the bonus together, which made it nice. And I think that was the moment when those buffalo came out, and they were so close that he decided he didn't want to do it that way. That's when his mind changed. Like, listen, I'm going to spot and stalk this thing. I don't want to do it this way. I want to do it the other way. And then and our outfitter obliged, and we were able to do it. Not successfully, by the way.
Fair play to you, buddy. I can't stand it. I get it. Bow hunting is difficult, and sitting at water, I have no problem with that. It's 100%. Like, it's so hard to spot and stalk game. It's really hard.
That was the whole goal this year. Is we took the bow, and I told Sean, I was like, listen, we did this deal with TV, and we had to do so many episodes. And I was like, man, I really think we ought to try to do some spot and stalking this year. So that was my priority. And we ended up doing a lot. I got a black wildebeest spot stalk, a zebra.
Awesome.
A sable. I shot a sable spot stock. Sean, both did giraffes. I mean, we got a lot. So, I mean, and that was my whole goal, was spot stock with a bow. And it was challenging. Don't get me wrong. It's not like reaching out with a rifle. You know what I mean? You have to put some time in. And to me, I think I enjoyed that more spotting and stalking I did anything, to be honest with you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you.
More
I'm the same.
rewarding for me, I should say.
100%. When you put the work in, it's like anything in life, isn't it? Anything you work hard for and you eventually get it, you're going to appreciate it way more. Anything that you can just pick off the shelf is like, are you really going to appreciate it that much?
Yeah, how fun is that to go just sit there? Okay, I'm going to shoot that one right there, squeeze the trigger, bang, you're done, it's over.
Yeah,
I guess in some people's eyes it's awesome, but I mean, for me, I like the challenge. You know what I mean? I like to put in the time and enjoy it more, I should say.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same.
That's an each their own kind of thing, right? So, when I went, brought the bow this year, and my intention was, hey, I'm going to spend a bunch of time in a blind. We blind hunt and tree stand hunt a lot here in the States. So we're all Eastern hunters. So for us, it's not unusual to be in that situation. And after a couple of sits, I realized I was kind of like Mike. Like I guess the way the story ended was I spent the last 5 days of 10 days at bow camp spotting and stalking kudu because I decided I wanted to spot and stalk a kudu with a bow, and went home empty handed. I was close several times, several times, but it just I'm not going to take a marginal shot. My thing is Staffin's a hell of a Staffin is an archer. There's no doubt about it. He can back up to 100 yards and he can drill an apple every single time. I'm not that guy. Like I feel okay at 40, but 50, 60, 70, nope, I'm not going to do it. So for me, I need to be close. He needs to be perfect. I'm not pulling near the weight that he is, so I'm not going to get as much penetration on a longer shot. So it needs to be right. And I drew back several times, and these were good, like biggest bulls and I've hunted several kudu, and I have several on the wall, and these things were 60 inches plus kudu. These were big kudu bulls. So my heart was already beating, 1,000 miles an hour because they were the biggest kudu I've ever had a chance to hunt. And then you're doing it with a bow, and like I'm within 20 yards.
In brush.
And I can see this kudu bull clear as day. I can't move a muscle. I can't do anything. And I was that close like 5 or 6 times and just could never get the shot off. And I've got so much B-roll of that too. Like I know my cameraman on that for that portion of the trip, he must have been so bored. Like I've got, I don't know, 5 terabytes of nothing but B-roll from like.
But listen, that's the nature of the beast, though. We chased buffalo, we chased kudu. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Well, and that's okay.
100%.
I know from an outfitter's perspective, every outfitter wants to fill the entirety of their client's list, and hopefully they'll shoot some additional shit while they're there. That's everybody's goal, and I'm fine with that. That happens to me. I put a list together every year. I never follow it. I may have 4 animals on my list. I come home with 27. It's stupid. And that's actually not an exaggeration. I think, well, we did a cull hunt this year for the first time. And, I thought, hey, we're going to go out and shoot 2 or 3 coals, and, the meat goes to the farmer, and then the abattoir is going to come and get the rest of it. And I went out one night and I stacked up like 60 springbucks in the matter of, I don't know.
I shot more fallow deer than I think I ever want to shoot.
Oh, wow.
And it was a big free range property in the Eastern Cape. It was 60,000 hectares, all low fence, and they're just tons of blessed buck and springbuck, and they just needed to thin the herd. And like I said, my thought was, hey, I'm going to go out and we're going to shoot a couple of springbuck, and I literally filled the back of the bakkie full and a follow truck with springbuck. We shot so many of them.
Wow.
It was fun.
Some of those places got a lot of game, and there it is animal management for sure. For sure, when you got lots and lots of game like that.
Yeah, and so we went down this rabbit hole again already. So we're way off topic, but jumping back in. So there's this. We had a guest on.
I'm
recently.
excited about bow hunting now.
Yeah. Mike could talk about it all the time. And actually, we're all going back this year to wither bows. So we're like, I've got it bad. There's something about it for me. Like the only way I want to hunt with a rifle anymore is from long range, like extreme long range.
And that's what I would want to do.
I want, the 1,000-yard shots kind of thing, because it's hard, right? Not everybody can do it. And now, while yes, you can go buy a $30,000 Gunworks rifle that, frankly, will do it all for you, or you could do it the hard way and learn the ballistics and learn your wind calls and learn your holdovers and learn to read mirage. And if you've done all that and you've got your dope and what the rifle's capable of, that's to me like a real success for a hunter, is for me to get there long range. I guess the counter to that would be, well, yeah, it's easy to get within 1,000 yards of an animal. It's a lot harder to get within 20 yards, right? So there's 2 sides of that coin.
Yes, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've never hunted in places where you can shoot that far, and I've never been a long range precision shooter either. I mean, it's like each to their own, I'm more interested in open sights at a buffalo that's looking over the grass at me in 5 yards. That's what really gets me excited. Shooting animal far away, I get it. It's hard, far too hard for me, but it doesn't float my boat, if you know what I mean.
Right.
No, I get it. Absolutely. But so we're all going back. We're bow hunting again this year, and really looking forward to that. But moving on, we had a guest on. His name is Randy Vestrot from South Africa. Super great guy. We really, really liked him a bunch. He was a great guest. He was ex FASA executive, and I think he actually just got invited back to serve as vice president of FASA in South Africa. But Randy's got this saying. We really dove deep into rhino conservation with him and conservation in general. But he's got this saying that from a conservation perspective, conservation doesn't need to exist anymore. The term conservation, because we've already been successful in conserving the animal. With the exception of a couple of species, we've done our due diligence. We've saved the animal. There's high population numbers of all these animals now, and we need to switch our train of thought around to resource management instead. How do we manage the resource now versus trying to conserve it? What's your thoughts about that?
Resource management, conservation, sounds like the same thing to me.
That's fair enough too.
Those are fucking picking at straws there. What?
Well, I think I think from his side, people talk about conservation and they've got to save the species, right? I think that's where that is. These animals aren't on the endangered species list anymore, right? So there's a million wildebeest in South Africa or whatever. We've done our job to conserve them. Now we need to manage the I think is what he's getting at,
for sure. People just need to be clear that South Africa is its own entity. It has its different problems to what the rest of Africa has. South Africa is still first world. I'm sure you've been to some towns there and you're like, wow, this is like really got it going on or whatever. And they've got bunches of game. I mean, they breed game. They're game breeders. So there's tons and tons of everything. So yes, that is now you've got to manage that stuff because, there's so much of it. Whereas, I think as you go north of South Africa, certainly in Zimbabwe and it gets worse as you keep going more north. It's more than animal conservation, it's land conservation. It's the conservation of wilderness areas. South Africa's got a lot of privatized land, so you got one guy who's in charge of this big piece of land he owns that land. That land is his. That's his family's land. Whereas in Africa, north of South Africa, it's now government land, right? So that government can do whatever it wants with that land. There's very little private land north of South Africa. I mean, Namibia's still got quite a lot. Mozambique, I think they give like 99-year leases where that land is yours for 99 years and then it goes back. So that's a long period. But Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, Botswana, I think Botswana also has private land, but they also have government land. But in these more northern countries, or should I say Central Africa, or they give out 5-year leases or 10-year leases. So now, the one of the problems is with a 5-year lease, right? If you get a 5-year lease to hunt an area, there's guys out there, operators out there that'll be like, well, I need to make as much money as I can in 5 years before somebody else outbids me for the area, right? So then that's where you could come into guys overshooting quota or, doing a deal around the side with parks or whatever with government facilities, and being crooked to make money, right? Whereas I'd say the majority of people who operate safari areas are good people and they do it for the right area, for the right reasons. But there are bad eggs, like any industry. Like even like dentists, for instance, there's going to be a dentist out there who's not even doing a good job. He's just collecting the money and sending him out, bring the next guy in, whatever your profession is. There's those guys in the hunting area, in the hunting things as well. So, you know, what people face in South Africa compared to the rest of Africa is, I mean, South Africa got problems. Yeah, like that guy saying, it was resource management. Okay, yeah, resource management. You could also call that for resource management here, but like my aim or my goal in my life is to try and see that the wildlife spaces are kept wildlife spaces in South Africa, unless they have some government intervention where they say we can go and take all the white people's land or the people who own wildlife's land, much like they did here and they did in the rest of Africa. If that happens in South Africa, then they're going to lose a lot of their wildlife for sure. But hopefully it doesn't. I mean, South Africa at the moment's got a government where a national unity or whatever, all the different parties have kind of come together and they've formed one party. So they're looking good for the near future. But yeah, the Cameroon, for instance, like the Lord Derby Eland, where the Lord Derby Eland lives, there is so much overgrazing by cattle, the Maasai land. It's more a problem of like human encroachment onto government land, and the government gets into a bind because, you know, they want to win their next election, they want to keep their people happy, and so they got to play the balancing act of, you know, keeping the hunting fraternity happy by preserving these wildlife areas, but also don't pee off the people too much. You know, I always explain it as, you know, national parks are, it's like a fried egg. So the yolk is the national park, and then around that, the white is the hunting area, and then outside of the white is all the communities. So, you know, where the communities are, a lot of that used to also be wildlife land, but those wildlife is all gone. I mean, the trees, I mean, Zimbabwe is still good with its trees. I mean, it's illegal to cut down a living tree here, and it's very stern. But there's a lot of other African countries where charcoal production is just through the roof. It's actually legal in Zimbabwe to make charcoal, but you go into, you know, Zambia's got a big charcoal problem, Mozambique,
Namibia,
Malawi.
we saw it firsthand in Namibia 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
I was going to say, yeah, that was an experience too. We got to kind of see all that and how that was done.
Yeah,
And they just
exactly.
clear cut everything for charcoal.
It's
just
bad.
Wipe it out.
And a tree that takes 50 years to reach maturity will be chopped down, and you'll probably make 5 bags of charcoal from that tree, and each bag is $2. So you've made $10 from a tree that took 50 years to grow. It's just like the most unsustainable practice. But it's the human population growth is when you talk of Africa in general, it's the biggest nightmare for wildlife, other than the greenies, you know, because if the greenies stop the hunting, then the land will just be grabbed by the local people to eat the meat and burn the trees, and then the mining comes, and then the farming, and then it's all gone. So the greenies are actually the first and foremost threat, but the sort of natural threat is the human overpopulation. And, you know, at the moment, we've lost all the wildlife around the fried egg, and the hunting is the white part of the fried egg. So once that goes, then you end up in the situation where Kenya is, where the population is on the border of the national parks. And that's why Kenya has been such a disaster, because now they play this epic conservation, but they are toiling because their last little wildlife patches, which is the yoke, is now surrounded by people. And that's one way you got now. Kenya's but they've got 1,100,000 billion tourists running around in the yoke, and and they play, oh, we don't do hunting here and we're so cool or whatever, but they have lost a lot of land and a lot of wildlife to agriculture and farming, and just turning into what we call tribal trust land.
Yeah, and you're right. You brought up Kenya, and that's a good point. Kenya is a perfect example of what happens when you're not allowed to hunt. And we had Doug Cocroft on from Splitting Image, and his family was originally from Kenya, and he grew up there for a time, and then I think he said he went back, 20 years later, and the migratory patterns of which is what drives the tourist, right? Because they still migrate a little bit there. The migratory pattern he witnessed 20 years after he left Kenya to, now, or 10 years ago, was, I think he said, a quarter of what it was, 20 years prior. So in 20 years, if he saw 100,000 animals 20 years ago, they saw 25,000 now. And it was just a drastic reduction, and it's going to keep getting worse there. That's stepping over $1 to pick up a dime kind of thinking. That shit doesn't work. I mean, you can try to keep the greenies happy, but biology says, and conservationists will argue that, hey, this doesn't work, and it's clear that it's not going to. And when you get those urban environments encroaching on wild, native animals in their landscape, no wonder why. I mean, shit, you've got lions, you've got leopards, you've got elephants that kill villagers and shit all the time. That's what they're going to do if you keep pushing in, especially if you don't let hunters come in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I think of conservation, I don't really think of it as conserving a particular species. It's just more conserving the land, so I think, that word is quite suitable for Africa in general. Whereas maybe South Africa is a little bit more resource management, maybe does apply better there. But for sure, I think the conservation of land is the most important thing, because, all these creatures need land.
Right. Well, here's one. So we're talking about, Northern and Central Africa right now, where I spend the vast majority of your time. So let's talk about high fence hunting a little bit. And this is one of those topics that gets super controversial, because in South Africa, especially, I'm going to say 90+% of the hunting that's done in South Africa is done around a high fence, whereas when you move north, that doesn't happen anymore. So what's your take on that practice, and how do you think that impacts the reputation of hunting in South Africa because of that high fence situation?
Listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, as long as the place is big. You know what I mean? As long as the animal's got a fair chance to get away, that's and a fair chance to get away is not running from one bush to the next bush to do the same loop again. That's not a fair chance. Fair chance is when he goes and you lose his tracks and you have no idea where he is, and he could be over the next mountains, and like there's places that are 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 is big. It's a big piece of land, like 1,000 acres or whatever. It's big. The animal can get away. So that's, for me, that's fine. And at the end of the day, it's wildlife land. So that's a good thing, and it's got its place. And not everybody wants to go and have a super hard wild hunt, or can afford to do it. So I do think there is a place for it. What I don't like is because I have hunted in places before in South Africa, Namibia, and where you've been pushing an animal and now it hits a fence, and then I've seen animals be shot and there's a fence in the background, and the oaks turn to me and they're like, hey, can you take that fence out? And I'm like, I don't want to take a fence out. You made this situation. I'm not doing, also, like, I can edit films, but I'm, not quite at the point where I can take out fences and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Frame by frame to get rid of a fence. Yeah, that's a pipe dream.
I don't know. Like, someone was telling me the other day, you can actually take things out now and whatever. Like, I was like, oh, I don't even know about that. But I just, as long as the animal's got a fair chase, I hate to see an animal shot where, you see some videos or whatever, you see an animal eating, some some food that was put there. I don't like, for deer and stuff, I get it. Like the deers, also you guys don't have trackers and stuff. And deers are switched on and whatever. I mean, you can bait them in, and there's a million deers. I just feel bad, like when I see a buffalo eating out of a tire or something, and then twang, it gets whacked with a bow or whatever. I just like, what? Come on, like that guy didn't have a chance.
I'm out on
really
that too.
fair. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and,
I think if the land is big, happy days. But if it's small, 2,000, 1,000, 3,000, I know I'm not interested in that. Like I've seen it before, where you go and there's a reason for this gate, and there's a reason for that gate, and there's always a damn reason. I'm not interested. It's all in my opinion. Like if it's small camps, I'm not interested. Like I've been on a hunt before, and I saw the holes in the ears, and there was still blood coming out. That thing was just captured, put there for that client because he wanted a certain this and that and this and that. And a lot of that, unfortunately, a lot of that happens in South Africa.
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of that happens in South Africa. And here comes the problem, where South Africa gets thrown with the one blanket for the whole place. But, when I was in boarding school, if one guy fucked up in the dormitory, it was blanket punishment. You were beaten. You were all told to do press-ups. You were all given cold showers. There. Now you make sure that guy doesn't do that again. Otherwise, you're also in there. So unless they do something about it, it's always going to be there, unfortunately, in my opinion. But a big fenced area, no problem. I'm happy days. But when you start canning and whatever, I don't like it.
Well, what's your definition of a canned hunt then? So obviously you've got to, in your mind, there's got to be X number of hectares, right? Place has got to be so large. Obviously you don't want to run an animal down a fence where he can't escape. So when does it become canned? Is it under, say 3,000 hectares or acres, and, where it's these small, because listen, that happens a lot in Limpopo. You hear Limpopo all the time. There's very small concessions there. I've been on some that weren't even 1,000 hectares before. I'm like, what the fuck is this? But I've hunted, I've been to South Africa and hunted, dozen plus times on safari. So, and I know it exists, and I don't want to hunt at those places. But to the average hunter, I mean, to you anyway, what is your definition of canned hunting? Obviously, fair chase, right? So you've got to throw that into the equation. But from a land perspective, what do you think the minimum should be?
You see, that's a very good question, because I'm not a mathematical person at all. I'm like a artist, bushman type human. So, I don't even know how big 3,000 acres is, but I know it's small. So I can't give you a figure. I want to say something like 25,000, 20,000 maybe, that. But I'm not exactly sure. Like it's a good question. I'd love to see, if I was like from a drone perspective, okay, that is how big 20,000 is. Okay, but yeah, I can say, okay, that piece there, yeah, that's big enough. But I don't know a number, right? But I do know that things I disagree with is putting animals in for them to be killed. You know what I mean? It's like when you put your cows into the trailer, they're going for death. I don't agree with that for wildlife. I think wildlife should live, you won't, there's the wool gets pulled over people's eyes like you cannot even imagine. I mean, even when I experienced it, I was like, am I right? Am I wrong? I had to be really on the ball to figure out, oh my God, every time we're looking for this animal, there's always one. And then if I saw the holes, and then I was like, nah, surely not. And then, so I started listening in. I turned my camera on, listening into the earpod things or whatever. And then you hear the Afrikaans flimming call come over the radio, whatever. And I was like, this is really happening. And then the clients asked me, what do you think is this? They saw the hole in the ear that was bleeding there. 2 perfect holes, one big one and one small one. and the bottom one was bleeding a little bit. And the client said, "What do you think is this thing?" So I said, "Don't ask me questions you don't want to hear the answers to. Please,
Right.
I'm here to be the cameraman." And and
Well,
I don't know. The thing is, the high fence thing has gotten a reputation now. So everyone is like, "No, I don't want to hunt in a high fence." But you're right. There should be sort of an ethical number for the piece of land to be, and then people can say, "Oh yes, it is high fence, but it's 20,000 acres high fenced," then at least people can be like, "Okay, cool." But the problem with that is people will still say it's 20,000 acres, meanwhile it's 3, and they just walk you in figures of 8, like a 4-leaf clover. You're not going to know where the hell you are. You think you walked all day. You think you've done all 20,000 acres, but you've done one,
Well, and I personally got to experience that this year. Kind of a similar situation. We hunted with 2 different outfitters, and I noticed a huge difference when it comes to open, lots of land, and then fenced in areas. And to me, it was, I could see the difference and I could understand the difference. And, to me, I get what everybody says about fences and not hunting high fences and things in that nature. And to me, I'm the guy that I you're obviously going to see a fence, right? There's fences everywhere. It doesn't matter how many acres or not. But for me, it was, I this year was an eye-opening experience for me because I got to see what everybody was really talking about with fences and non-fences. So,
well, and you've
for
hunted
sure.
both on large tracts of land, and then you've also hunted on a small tract of land, but that you've also hunted on you've been on free range kudu hunts and stuff like that. And now for me, like the Eastern Cape of South Africa, for example, the Cape kudu are smaller than the Southern graders, but you want a challenging hunt, go chase a free range kudu in the mountain. Like that's legit.
right.
That's the way to
Yeah.
do it.
Look at
And
the
it's
difference from Namibia to where we were in the mountains.
mhm.
I mean, that was huge difference.
And I don't want to gloss over this because Andy was on to something there. Paul, you might have wrote it down, but I think Andy, what you were getting at, there's a practice that's been coined. Don't know if it's a U.S. term or not, but we call it put and take, and that's something we discuss often. In that, those are those situations where those outfitters or landowners are constantly bringing in new stock to replenish, so they can continue to hunt through the year, right? I understand why it's necessary to run a business that way, but I also have a hard time with it because you're literally just dropping off truckloads of Impala, truckloads of sable, truckloads of wildebeest, and it's what's your I think I already know the answer, but what's your thought on that?
You know what? There's clearly a market for it because people are doing it and people are buying it. So there's a market for it. And if it floats your boat, I don't know, man, crack on. I'm not the wildlife police. But personally, I wouldn't partake. You know what I mean? Like, why? I don't get it. Like I did a hunt with some people and we were in South Africa and we were chasing after these gemsbok with the vehicle, chasing them and chasing them, and then and then chasing them. I was like, oh my, and they were having the time of their life. I was trying to hold on to my camera, my flipping, trying to film something. Eventually I was just like, you know what, I gotta say something. And I said, guys, why are we hunting like this? Like, what is the, and they were, no, we love this. And I said, but wouldn't you like to hunt in a free range place where it's like, you're going to walk and you're going to have to track the thing and you have to make sure the wind's right. And, like super, no. We don't want to do that. That sounds like a cuck time. That sounds terrible. So there's a market for it. People like to do it. It sells like hotcakes. The shoot those ones, bring the next ones and shoot them all. Personally, I don't like it. I don't like it. Even like the caged lion breeding thing, like, and those lions are like way cheaper than a wild lion, way cheaper, super cheap. And I think like there's a, I'm not an expert on it, but I mean, I'm just talking from what I heard. I think you sell the animal to a hunter to shoot, and then he takes the skin, and then they can sell the bones to the Chinese and the like. And now, like, yes, now you want to talk about being against my moral thing. That's now we're in the terrain of really against my moral background. But I don't, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a lion to be, I know the way I've always imagined a lion is it grows up in the wilderness and it, it fends off snakes and it freaking gets attacked by elephants and it lives this majestic, beautiful, wild, regal life. And then, if you manage to be the one who paid $100,000 and took this thing's life, then good for you, because that $100,000 is going to make sure that thing's cubs are going to have the same magnificent life that their father had. So that now I can rest at night and be like, that's it. I often look at an animal on the ground and I'm like, damn, that thing just lost all its beauty. Like, there's very little beauty left in a lion or a leopard when it's on the ground, or an elephant. But for me, it helps, that I know that this is a good cause. Whereas, if I had to, I think I'd get sick if I had to shoot a lion that was raised in a cage, and just it had a life, and then some oak just came and shot it, like without even putting a bait or anything. They know where those animals are. They've been drugged and moved there, and that's why you can get guys that you can just walk in there and shoot at the thing. The thing's sitting there looking at you. Maybe might be growling. A wild lion doesn't do that. A wild lion, he gets a whiff of you, he's either gonna come for you or he's gonna run away. Like, most of the time, gonna run away. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, it's morally, I don't know. And also, I'm not a money hungry person, so I'll be, but there's a lot of those people in this world that'll just do whatever their money is.
Yeah, and I think, my take on it is I'm the first one to congratulate a hunter, anytime they're able to harvest an animal. So, and I also understand the economics of it. When you get into Northern Africa and Central Africa, it is more expensive to do that. And for a lot of, especially blue collar hunters, and that's actually a question I had written down too to talk to you about later on. But for a lot of blue collar hunters that can afford South Africa, they're probably not going to be able to afford, Botswana, Mozambique, Zim, Zambia. Those places, they are more expensive, and there is no such thing for the most part of a 7-day hunt. You're committing to 14 days, 21 days, whatever, and that's a big check to write. So while I don't agree with the practice, I think it's necessary for that industry. That country's set up for it. The high fences are set up for it. And to me, so long as somebody is participating and they're hunting, right, they're involved in the industry, and there's money going back into conservation programs, and there's money going back to promote the industry and keep hunters hunting, I don't have a problem with it. Now, the CBL thing with the lions, I have a big problem with that. I am 100% out. And we've had guests on that swear it's the most fun hunt that you'll ever do is a CBL hunt. I'm with you. I would rather go spend 2 weeks and put baits out and work for it than hunt a CBL line. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm 100%. I'm done. Not for me at all. But I don't, for me, if somebody wants to do it, I have no problem with it, right? I'm not going to say you can't do it, but to me, it's hunting. It's by any legal means, right? So if it's legal to do, have at it.
Yeah, for sure. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean somebody else don't like it. I think I don't. I just feel sorry for the animal, man. That's all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what a cuck life. Live in a cage and then get released for someone to shoot. I mean, that's just rough.
Yeah, I get it for sure. Paul, you were writing something down, or did I already?
No, I mean, I was just thinking, like, okay, I'm Paul from small town Florida, never been to Africa before, and I get in touch with you and say, hey, I want to do this specific hunt, and it's totally what we were talking about. How do you kind of manage that and say, hey, you sure you want to do that? What are you really thinking? What is your take on that kind of a thing? So as well as kind of,
So, to be honest, I don't really dive into why are you doing it or anything like that. It's not really my business. But what I do say is that it doesn't. It's not what I do. It's not what I do.
hmm
Yeah, I just
So would you
trying to
turn
be
a hunter
civil.
away if it's something that you don't do? Would you kind of just turn them away, or like,
Yeah, 100%. I would say you're at the wrong shopping center. Yeah, pal.
yep.
Perfect.
From a show perspective and being on YouTube, I'm sure you get comments all the time from people, or is that calmed down a bunch lately?
Um, I think there's always going to be the the people that don't understand. Um, so I don't really pay much attention to them, to be honest. They're not they're not contributing anything to to conservation or wildlife. Or they're not wildlife people. They city folk or whatever. So yeah, you get
Yeah,
it.
so we try to yeah, unfortunately controversy is good for business, right? Especially if you're, based in this social media world that we are today. It drives clicks, it drives, subscriptions, it just, it's not bad, but at the same time, I get tired of I respond to every comment, no matter what. No matter how stupid it is, I respond and I try to educate people. Um, but it's monotonous because it's the same thing over and over and over and over. And like, but still, I want to be that guy, right? I've got a platform where we're able to reach quite a few people, and but I want to hear everybody's side of the story, right, and give everybody a chance. So I try to do it, through education, right? I want to educate people. Have I ever been successful converting an anti-hunter over to maybe our side? No, there's zero chance. A non-hunter or to a hunter, yeah, I think I've been successful in doing that and opening up the thought that, hey, yeah, maybe I would like to try this. So and I think that in our lives, I'm sure Staffan's had that person that wasn't a hunter that he got involved in hunting, and now they're a hunter and they've taught their kids. And Paul, I think Paul's working on his wife right now to try to get her over to our side too. But it's a damn finicky thing. But all right, so let's move on a little bit. Paul, before we jump to the next thing, did you have anything you want to throw in there, or Staffing? Anything you got?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, so Andy, let's talk about your podcast a little bit. So you've got a fairly new podcast now, correct?
Yeah, I do. It's it's something I've always wanted to do, and I've kind of gotten to the point where the TV show's rolling, um, and I have enough time to actually do the podcast. So, my thing was before I was never able to manage my time well enough to have the time to do podcasts. But yeah, my girlfriend's working with me now, and she's she's really capable with all this stuff. And yeah, so now we've got a little podcast going. We're trying to do 18 series, excuse me, an 18 series season, as kind of the first season of the podcast. Um, and yeah, so it's pretty cool because it's all the African guys, and they all, well, for the first season, they're mainly going to be Zimbabwean professional hunters. So all really really good hunters, and a lot of experience. Yeah, and they've got a lot to offer. I look back at my first season of This Is Africa, the TV show, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was really not that good in the beginning, but you get better as you go on, and you get more confident and all that jazz. Um, so I'm sure the podcast will be the same. At the moment, it's just people sitting together and talking stories and whatever. So it's nothing really, too controversial or anything like that. But I do get that eventually you gotta start, speaking about certain topics and things like that. And maybe that'll come with time. But for now, it's just talking stories.
Well, I think for us, it's just our personality. Paul excluded from that. Staffen and I have no problem diving in and getting deep in a conversation with some asshole because they're stupid. I have no problem doing it. Staffen's the same way.
Yeah.
I'll call a spade a spade. I don't give a shit. Paul
Yeah.
seems to be the more diplomatic one of the group for sure. But I think, how many years do you have in the army that got you? Is 35-ish?
Yeah. So my people skills have gotten a little. I just get quiet and simpler that way, just let them roll in one ear and out the other. So yeah.
I like it. You know what? I don't like a heated argument. I like a heated discussion, though, when you can actually have an opposing view. So you've got the person sitting on the other side of the table. I feel strongly about CBL hunting, right? I don't want to have anything to do with hunting a captive bred lion. But then the guy across the table is all for it. And the ability as hunters to have that kind of conversation and that back and forth, I really enjoy that. I don't like it when they get heated because there's no reason to. I think as a community of hunters, we should be better than that and be able to have these conversations and these uncomfortable conversations. And we don't have to agree with each other's opinion on it, but it doesn't mean we have to argue and fight about it either.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, it's nice that there's people like yourself that are willing to go there, because, I mean, here in Africa, especially, if you pee somebody off, they come to fight with you. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of be careful where you step, as such. Where I think in the States, it's a much more civil environment. If someone comes and knocks your teeth out, you can at least sue them and become a millionaire. Whereas here, you go to the dentist and pay.
Well, and and you hit the nail on the head, and that's the unfortunate part about it. We used to the U.S. when I was a kid, and when all of us were kids, that's still how it was. Now, people, if two men had a disagreement, you'd go outside, you'd take care of it, whip each other's ass, and then you'd end up at the bar together having a beer afterward, right? You handled it. Shit's not done that way anymore, and you can't you can't even hardly talk to some people anymore without or talk about somebody that if it comes across negative, there's a chance that you're going to get a knock on your door and it's going to be a processor server because you just got sued, kind of thing. That's the mentality now, rather than just working shit out and being men about it. Now we're just going to sit behind a closed door and sue people, which to me, that's just, those are that do that. Like, those guys need to grow a set. And there's people that do that and just, face shit head on and work it out, look the way. And I don't necessarily mean we got to go out and beat each other's ass, but you can have a conversation and fix that moral compass that those guys possessed. And these next generations of people, that doesn't exist anymore. They're not bound by ethics, and they don't have a moral code like, that generation grew up with. And I think it's kind of sad. That's in the U.S. I certainly can't speak for Africa because I don't know. I think you guys are still a little bit more traditional in your word is your bond. And obviously there's people that aren't that way, but I think for the most part, every African that I've met seems to be a straight shooter, and you can trust them to their word.
Yeah, I think, I mean, our suing culture is definitely not as heavy as yours. But, the older I get, the more I start realizing that, so there are those people, whether it's Africa, wherever, if you don't have a contract, they use that as a weapon. You know what I mean? Like, you make an agreement, you fulfill your side, and then they're like, well, where's the contract? And I'm like, well, and you get, I've had it many times where I've been burnt by people, and it's like, geez, no, okay, I suppose I also got to get into this world where I got to have a contract to, have an agreement. It does suck, but it is also this side of the world for sure.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate thing, but well, let's turn it over to something a little different. So one of the things I noticed on your shows, you spend a lot of time throughout the your seasons in these local communities, and you've got a lot of different B-roll, and there's a lot of interaction between the hunters and the local villagers, and you're giving out meat, you're doing this in some of these remote areas, and it's I love to see that. And so the question was going to be, how do local communities, especially in those regions you hunt, how do they benefit from hunting? Give us the broad stroke version of how the locals benefit.
Okay, so meat is always the one thing that they benefit from, and this also goes back to now who the operator is. There are operators that will keep the meat and sell it for financial gain or whatever. It's not a lot of money, in our terms. But there are guys who are like that, you know what I mean? Every penny that they can get, they'll get. But the majority of people, especially ones who are conservation minded and trying to uplift the communities and all that. So the meat is one of the things. And then, so here, for instance, is a thing called campfire. And now that's like a community or like an area the community owns the area basically. So you can hunt there, but then a certain percentage of that money goes to of the animals goes to the community. So you have to pay the community a yearly fee, and then each trophy that's shot, you have to give them a percentage of that money, which they can do with whatever they want. And then also you do get some community chiefs that are like, I mean, you guy's a pig. He just buys himself a car and he builds himself a house and does nothing for his community. You know what I mean? So there you get on to the next level of what kind of operator are you? Are you making sure that the chief is doing the right thing with the money, or are you just happy to make the chief happy, and then you can carry on your business? So in a place that works well, it works very well. The community, I mean, there's no other money being made out there for these communities. So it's nice for them to be able to, keep stock of medicines in the clinic and pay the teachers and drill a borehole and all that kind of stuff. So where it is, coordinated properly, it's hugely beneficial to the community. And then also, hunting operators will sponsor football teams and do big days where everyone gets together and has a big festival. And obviously the employment thing is also another benefit. Like all the anti-poaching scouts normally come from the surrounding villages, all the camp staff. So you're looking at 70-80 families there just being fed from the hunting outfitter. So where it's done properly, it's amazing. I mean, and then there's operators that really do go out of their way and help the communities start up beehive projects, and the ladies sow, and then other ladies can go out and collect fruits, and they facilitate the connection from those local people to now outside buyers for these wild fruits, or whether it's leaves or whatever they can sell from the wilderness. So a good hunting operator really goes a long way for the local people. And then by law you have to pay that amount of money and whatever. So it's always beneficial, but it depends on the degree of benefit the community depends on the outfitter himself. What kind of guy is he? So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question. Hey.
No, that's good. My experience is limited to not just South Africa, but I've not hunted in all these cool locations that you have. And you get into some remote stuff too. I mean, you've got clients flying in and landing on, grass strips or dirt strips, hunting these super remote places where, very few people have ever been in their life, much less even know it exists. A lot of times when in your episodes, you've got somebody coming in and you're hunting at this place or that place, and I'll Google it and look it up and see where it is. I'm like, how the you even get there. It's like, from a vehicle perspective, it should take you 2 days to drive there from the nearest airport, kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. It's always interesting because, obviously safaris are expensive and whatever. And then, you get, you give the option. When I first started in the whole booking thing, I used to give the guys the options. You can drive in, it's going to cost you $1,000, or you can fly, it's going to cost you 3,000. And they're like, okay, I'll drive. And then I'll spend the other $2,000 on, a eland or a kudu or whatever. And okay, cool. And then you drive there for 9, 10, 11, 12 hours, and they like just come off the plane. And then, I've just eventually, I just learned that don't even give the option. You know what I mean? Just fly in. That money is your money well spent, pal, because the roads are horrendous.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I get. I think I'm a fly guy, not a drive guy. But
Yeah.
you mentioned it briefly, and my next question was going to be specifically about poaching and anti-poaching that goes on in those areas that you hunt. While there is poaching in South Africa, it's not nearly as prevalent as it is in some of these other countries. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, you've done segments in your episodes, and you've talked about poaching, and I think what's unique is a lot of times in your show and then in other shows when you're hunting those more northern countries in Africa. People are confused because all of a sudden there's a guy in military fatigues with an AK-47 that's with you all the time. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what that's about?
Okay, so that guy that you see who's normally with us with the AK and looking all military and whatnot, he's normally just a government official, right? So he's there, he's like a national parks ranger or whatever. So he's there just to make sure that all the rules are followed and whatever. So certain areas you can hunt at night and you can use a light for your cats and for hyena and whatever. Other areas you're not. You're not allowed to shoot half an hour after sunset and later. You're not allowed. And you're allowed to shoot only half an hour before sunrise. So he's there to make sure that you're not doing anything, you know what I mean? And if you shoot an animal and blood is found, that animal is paid for, you don't go and shoot another one. All the rules are followed, basically. So that's what that guy is there for. Obviously, if there's poachers, if you run into poachers or whatever, then he's got the green card to, throw rounds downrange and do whatever he's got to do. You're not really allowed to do anything. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine, some of these concessions are 1 million acres, 2 million acres, and there's no fence, and and that whole place is surrounded by villages, right? So now your job as the operator is to keep all these people out, so that they don't come and eat all your animals. And it's a massive task. I mean, guys, and it gets complicated as well because different countries have got different governments, and each government is going to be, less strict or more strict or whatever. They will turn a blind eye, or they'll, if you arrest a poacher, then they will give you nonsense for arresting the poacher. So it's a balancing act, and it's difficult. Anti-poaching is massive, and with your government fees that you pay, each government is supposed to do all their anti-poaching from those fees. But often the case is a lot of that money goes where it's not supposed to go, and they don't do any anti-poaching, or they do very limited anti-poaching. So there's not enough fuel in their vehicles. They don't have the manpower. So now it's left up to the operator who's already paid his fee to go and hunt there. But now it's up to him, because if he doesn't look after it, he's got this concession for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. It's in his best interest to make sure that anti-poaching is going on. So he'll have an anti-poaching team, and some guys have got 10, and some guys have got 40, and some guys have got 140. And some guys are all kitted out and got motorbikes and walkie-talkies, and then other oaks are just running around with, 303s wrapped with and using sticks, and like the anti-poaching teams are very different wherever. And then they got to patrol these massive areas and remove snares and try and catch poachers, and Yeah, poaching is a wild thing. It's so important. The anti-poaching, and yeah, so some outfits have got airplanes to fly and look for camps and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, places like Tanzania as well. There's the areas are very, very vast and very, way out there. So a lot of those guys have got airplanes and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, poaching, and yeah, you do come across them every now and then some of them are there to they're gold mining, or some are cutting trees. Most are going for meat, or all three. You know what I mean? Like it's just different money they can come in and harvest from the wilderness areas. And it does it gets quite wild out there sometimes. I mean, there's stories that would make your hairs fall out. I don't know. I've heard some horrendous stories. I know there's tactics against poachers that I don't really want to talk about them, but it's a war basically, and as you know, in a war, tactics can be used. But yeah, it's you don't like, normally if you come across poachers when you're with clients or whatever, you don't go and do anything. You just avoid them, stay away from them. They don't want to be next to you. You don't want to be next to them. It's fine. But when guys are doing anti-poaching and whatever, it gets wild. Yeah. And as with Africa, there's things that happen in Africa. It's a way, everything in Africa is way more raw than the first world is used to, and you get people that don't understand poaching, and they say, shame the poachers. Those people they also know what they're doing is illegal, so they'll take you out, if they get the chance. So yeah, it's a war out there, and it's all in the name of wildlife. In the end of the day, yeah.
Well, you made mention earlier. So when we were talking about the operators of these concessions, the outfitters, and those local communities. So you've got this big tract of land with all these different communities all around, and you talk about if especially if he's a good operator and he helps these communities. Do you think that to me it would seem like that kind of intervention and giving back to those communities would go to prevent poaching? Because my assumption is that most of the poaching that's occurring is coming from those same villages and around those concessions.
Yeah. So my opinion is it does help a lot, because if you're nice to the people that are surrounding your hunting concession, if you help them and you better their lives, they're going to look to keep you. So if they know that someone's poaching, the chances they come to tell you that this guy is poaching is better than if you go out there and you don't give him anything and he's not receiving anything. Why must he tell you anything? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's going to benefit him if he buys meat from that guy who's poaching. So he's better off being on the poacher's side. So in my opinion, 100%. But it all comes down at the end of the day to money. If the operator is a greedy operator and all he wants to do is build a new house and buy a new car, and which is a lot of people, and maybe invest some money or whatever, then he'll come in for his 5 years, take what he can, and adios.
Move off to the
And that's
next
the thing,
concession.
they're out there, and yeah, exactly. And a lot of people know who these people are, but do you want to
money
be
talks,
the
though.
guy who? Yeah, well, exactly. That's the thing, yeah, it's a tough one. But that's also like, for me, being in Africa and knowing and being on the ground and knowing who's good and who's not good and whatever. This is why I like the ability to book people's hunts as well, because then at least they can be rest assured what they're doing is real conservation. I can't tell you how many people are out there playing the conservation community card and whatever, just because they know now that everybody is talking about this. Let me do this and let me jump on this hype train or whatever they want to do. So it's hard for someone sitting in America who's trying to plan a hunt in Africa now, who's actually doing good. Do you know what I mean? And then, you get, famous people who endorse things or whatever, this is endorsed by this and this and this. And this.
We were
That oak
absolutely
is
going
also,
there next.
he is also just endorsing just to get his money. You know what I mean? He doesn't know what's going on there. He doesn't even know the people. So I get phone calls from people to say, hey, we want to do this with this outfitter, whatever. What do you think? And I'm like, why are you phoning me? Surely you're the expert. You're the one who's charging people for this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's wild out there. But I mean, all said and done, the majority of the hunting outfitters are good people and they're doing the right thing. But some are better than others.
Yeah, and you brought up the point. I'm going to call them influencers. You get these personalities that come over that have big social media followings in the U.S. and they go out there to hunt and they endorse this outfitter, but they don't have a clue what happens after they leave or before they got there. They just got their hunt filmed on camera, and then all of a sudden, because this person went there and hunted, that everybody else has to go. Well, that's not necessarily vetting an outfitter is difficult, right? It's especially difficult in some of these more rural environments. And when you get to northern parts of Africa, South Africa, you can check some references and you can figure out pretty quickly. But, that was going to be my question before we moved into the social media thing. If you were an American and you wanted to book a trip, right? How would you go about doing that? If you wanted to hunt in, the Zambezi Valley, or you wanted to hunt in Tanzania or Mozambique or Botswana, how would you start? What would you do? What would you tell people? Hey, this is how I would start. This is how I would do my research. This is how I would find a good outfitter. What would you do?
It's a hard one,
man. And you can't say I'll call myself.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a hard one because, every operator's got his own area and his own animals to sell. So he's going to tell you he's the best, isn't he? So it's a difficult one because you phone this guy and he'll tell you I'm the best, and you phone that one and he'll tell I'm the best. No, that guy's not the best. So it's definitely, I mean, you just got to do research. Also, what I say is research. Don't just take one guy's opinion. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion. If especially if you want to make your dream come true. And I feel so sorry for guys because they'll save their whole lives and then they'll cock it up by booking with the wrong person, and they're so excited they fly over and then it's not what they were sold and they're not happy and they don't get their money back, and it's like, no. So yeah, I would just say do your research, speak to friends, speak to people who have been, not just one guy. Don't just go with one guy, because if that one guy has also only gone once, that's all he knows, if anything, maybe speak to someone who's been a few times, a lot of times. You get some of these guys who have come out, oh my goodness, they've hunted, some of these guys have come out a lot, once or twice a year for the last 20 years. Those guys know. They've been in it for long enough. They've talked to enough people. They've sat around enough campfires. They know. But, if a guy's been once and you speak to him and then, you're just going to, you're going to get, I don't know. To do your research. Don't just go in blind. Don't do it, because shame, man. If I've often thought if I wanted to book an elk hunt, how would I even start? Because
that's a sensitive topic here.
And I mean, you guys are there, you know what I mean? You guys are more elk experts than I am. One day I'd like to hunt an elk, but who am I going to ask? I'd probably just ask the people that go hunting a lot of elks, I suppose.
Well, and that's what not to do.
Yeah, I could tell you how not to do it for sure. But so my thing is, right, so you do your research on the outfitter. One thing, you've got SCI, you've got Dallas Safari Club, you've got Houston Safari Club, you've got the Great American Outdoor Show, you've got the big show in Salt Lake City. It seems like, and it's not just outfitters from Africa, it's wherever around the globe they are. These guys, it seems like they put the best used car salesman they can find at every booth, because every guy is better than the next kind of thing, and they're all going to sell you. So for me, I feel like those conventions, though they are certainly useful, how the you know that guy that you just talked to for 20 minutes is the guy that you need to book with. And these aren't cheap hunts either, right? I mean, you're not just dropping, okay, this isn't $3,000 to go kill a axis deer in South Florida. I mean, this is 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. You're talking to a guy for 20 minutes is, to me, that's not enough. You got to do better than that, right?
Yeah, you do have to do better than that for sure. Like, if you go and speak to someone and you like him and he feels like a good guy, do research. Try and find people that have got bad things to say about him. And don't go to the booth next door and try and find a guy who's sick, because he'll tell you very bad things about him. Because it's difficult because there are some wizards out there. You know what I mean? Like, I hear some things people say, and so I often will be hanging out at the Swift Bullet Company booth at the conventions or whatever. So I speak to a lot of different people that are booking in a lot of different places. And I just chat to them or whatever, and they tell me, "Oh no, I'm going here and I'm hunting this and I'm hunting," and I'm like, oh, "Okay, cool." And they're like, "Yeah, and I got it for such a deal. It was only like $2,000." I'm like, "You're going to hunt elephant for $2,000?" I'm like, "My friend, you need to have a look at that one, because that's not happening, pal." So it's crazy. People will sell crazy stuff. So yeah, you just got to do your research, and if you find your guy that you like, do more research. Definitely don't go on that guy told me nice things and whatever, because you'll be spun like a spider web.
Well, and in the old days, you could ask for references, and outfitters still do it. If you ask for references, they're going to give you some names of people to reach out to and contact. My issue with a reference coming from an outfitter is they're only going to tell you the people that they know ahead of time are going to talk good about them, right? They're not going to give you any ones that had a mediocre trip or had a shitty experience. So I think for me, what I encourage people to do, especially, and this is going to lead into this next segment for social media, is utilize social media and go to that outfitter's page, right? His Instagram page, his Facebook page, and look at the comments, right? And then look in the African hunting groups and stuff like that. Look for people that are, if all you're seeing is good comments, okay, reach out to those people, reach out to those hunters. If you've got there's 6 different groups of hunters and you found the guy that posted a picture from there, he was tagged in it, reach out to him, ask him about, how many times has he been with this outfitter? What were the accommodations like? Was there any, and here's the thing, hunters will talk to other hunters. They absolutely will talk to you about shit like that. And that's how I recommend to do it. Talk to the people that have been there. But I encourage people, if you've only been once, any outfitter can show somebody a good time once, right? Can you consistently back up that kind of quality experience? And I think inevitably, most outfitters want to do a good job. They don't, they want to run a tight ship and they want to show people a good time and give them their money's worth. But there are those bad apples out there. Like you say, somebody says, hey, I've got a $2,000, elephant hunt. Well, that doesn't exist anywhere. Or I've got a $2,000 leopard tag, or it's the end of the season, I've got one tag left, it's $2,000, fly out now. No, you don't. Like it's such thing as a $2,000 leopard tag, and we all know that. But some people get roped into shit and have bad experiences, and you could utilize it. But so let's move over to the social media thing for a second, and that's one thing. So I read, and we're going to talk about you for a minute directly. So you've had huge social media growth, right? So and I'm just going to read some statistics first. So your YouTube channel, the This Is Africa TV, has seen tremendous growth. You're at, as of roughly a month ago when you and I started chatting, you were already at 75,000 subscribers. You had accumulated over 500,000 views in just 6 months. You've added 1,600 new subscribers and published 19 videos in that same 6 months. Now, you've also gained 15,000 followers on Facebook, 3,300 on Instagram, and have amassed over 6 million views on YouTube. Those aren't small numbers. Those are, anybody in the world would be happy to have half of those numbers that you're putting up. So my question is, how important has social media been to the success of the show, and how do you balance showcasing that authentic hunting experience with trying also to meet your audience's expectations?
To be honest, the Facebook growth has been all my girlfriend's work, to be honest. So she's been cutting shorts and doing all that kind of stuff, which I wasn't doing before. I didn't have the time. What is the question again?
So, so how important is social media for you now? Now that you've gained such big followings on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, how important do you think that is moving forward? And how do you, recognizing that social media is important, how do you balance showcasing the authentic side of hunting versus just random out there on the internet just to gain views? So, there's that piece of your show that's super authentic, and you're showing that part of it. It's easy as a content creator, right, to go down these, oh, well, shit, I could just throw this out there because it's going to get me a million views. How do you justify the two, showing that authentic experience versus something that is going to be super clickbaity, like a fucking elephant charge, a mock elephant charge, something like that, but showing, you seem to show the authentic experience rather than just put out there just to get likes and subscribers and followers?
Yeah, it's difficult, and that's a really good question, because I'd say the long versions or the episode versions or the long versions of my films are where you're going to get the most authentic thing. But I completely get what you say. With social media, it seems like your like, especially Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. It does seem like the stuff that's more like is what's going to get you more traction, right? And when you're in the game of making a TV show or having a podcast or whatever, you want to get to the stage where you've got sponsors for your thing, so you can make some money out of your job. So, and the sponsors are asking you, well, you've only got this many views, and you've only got this many followers, and you only got this many whatever. So it kind of does force you into the position where you got to play that game a little bit. Which is obviously not ideal. But then at the same time, when you've got sponsors and whatever, you can't just be putting out things that look bad against your sponsor. You know what I mean? If it's just you, then you're like, well, whatever, I don't care. But if the social media thing is very interesting. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it at all. What's gotten me to where the YouTube is anyway is just making good films that people want to watch. But as far as Facebook and Instagram, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've been capped on Instagram. I don't think I've had a new follower for I don't know how long. A new whatever it's called, follower, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think Instagram has been capped anyway. Facebook has been moving fast. It's something I never really looked into and whatnot. But, I've approached sponsors before, and they've said, well, your Facebook is at 3,000. And I'm like, well, I do YouTube, not Facebook. I'm not a Facebook person. And they're like, well, no, we need your numbers to be up on Facebook, and you need your numbers to be up on Instagram. And people go as far as TikTok. And I'm like, TikTok? That's not my generation, mate.
Well,
anyway.
the problem with TikTok too. So we have a social media consultant that works for us full time, and her job is to she's posting every day something, whether it's a short, whether it's a reel, whether it's a static post or a picture. Every day something's going on top of the stuff that goes on YouTube. We just started with this podcast series. We created a new YouTube channel where the podcasts are going to reside. They're no more going to be on our main channel. They're going to have their own channel for it. And that's the same versions that you're going to be able to listen to on Spotify and Apple Music and those platforms too. So we kind of broke that off. But TikTok it's crazy. So TikTok is very much anti-hunting, big time. If you show a gun on TikTok, if you show an animal post for a picture, we get, I'd say, maybe 1 out of 10 posts that we do on TikTok doesn't get flagged instantly and taken down. And the ones that stay there, I remember there was one from last year. We had my girlfriend, actually, she harvested a 47-inch sable. and
Nice.
it was a short little reel, and it did not have a tag in its ear, by the way. Where the pH had a tape measure, and they started at the base and they went all the way around and showed you only saw the horn and a little bit of the black of the sable, and just the camera followed it around the 47 inches. That thing got like 60,000 views in a day. There was no thought behind it, no anything, just posted it out there and boom, 60,000 views. And then we'll spend, 3 days making this really good reel, right? That's going to pop off and people are going to enjoy. And we hit the go button, and 30 seconds later, we get an alert that it's been flagged and taken down. I'm like, you can't win on TikTok. And Instagram likewise too. Instagram is hard for whatever reason. There's people that say, oh, well, you can grow it, you can do this and that. I feel like in our industry, especially in the hunting industry, it's really hard to grow an Instagram following. And it's, unless you've already got it developed, like ours doesn't grow. We've been stuck at the same, and I think Instagram is one of those platforms too. They very much have turned it into a pay to play. So if you're willing to pay them to run ads, then yeah, you're going to gain followers. And if you're not, I don't think you're going to move. Like, I just think that's the way it is. And it's a finicky beast.
I think you're right. Certainly with the TikTok, we only started TikTok recently. My girlfriend started it, but she came to me the other day and she said, I don't think TikTok likes This Is Africa because they're shutting down all our videos. I think you're right on Instagram as well. I think, you might actually be answering a question I've been asking for a while. Like, why am I in the beginning, I was growing fast and whatever. Doesn't matter how much cool stuff you post or whatever, it doesn't seem to get any traction.
Throw $50 at a sponsored ad just for shits and giggles on Instagram and watch what happens.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because you spend all this time trying to grow your things and whatever and all that stuff, but they can take it down anytime, right?
Yeah, and they do. And we've been flagged several times on YouTube and had several videos that have been demonetized too for stupid shit. Like we always, especially with our South African guests and our African guests, we always kind of, when we close out, we always ask them about, our upcoming elections and what are your guys' thoughts on the presidential race and stuff like that, because it does matter to Africa. And if I mention Donald Trump one time, that video is getting demonetized. And we're not talking about politics. I'm asking about somebody's opinion, but because that, for whatever reason, that algorithm detected that you just said Donald Trump, and guess what? That demonetized it. So you could get 1 million views on that video. I'm making zero off it. Zero, because I mentioned Donald Trump's name one time.
No. I mean, in terms of YouTube, I have had such a handstand trying to. So I pay my music licenses. I film all my own content. I don't use anything from anyone. Copyright strike. I'm like, copyright strike? How am I getting a copyright strike? I pay thousands of dollars for my music, and I'm still getting copyright strike. It's so frustrating. And and I'm not a technical whiz kid, so I can't figure it out. But I think I have lost a lot of money on YouTube for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, especially the music's a super touchy thing, because I've got subscriptions to multiple different music sites, right? That's copyright free. You pay a subscription and you have the license. Same thing. Copyright strike. You're using copyrighted music. Well, I found a way around that. So if anybody out there's watching, there's a trick to this. Instead of spending all that money on all these subscriptions, there's a new AI platform called Suno.ai. You can give it a prompt, so you can explain to it, for example, it's a spot and stalk. You want super dramatic music. It needs to be African themed, or it needs to be upbeat with lots of drums, and it will generate a custom music track for you and the more you use it, the smarter it gets. So I've stopped using all those pay to play sites for music. So anything you've seen in the past 6 months, any music on any of our reels or shorts, anything, that's not paid for. That's generated music that AI generates for me. So you'll never see it anywhere else.
That is epic.
And it's like,
that is good to know, because geez, I pay these guys a lot of money and they just get copyright strikes
And
on me. It's so frustrating.
yeah, and I don't know what the subscription costs. I think it's less than $100 a year. And
Oh, wow.
and while it does take a couple of minutes to kind of listen, it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes to figure out the interface. Then once you get that done, I actually use a lot of Chat GPT in that, I'm sorry, not Chat GPT, another AI that goes in, and especially like on a podcast, I can take the entirety of the transcript and dump it in. I'm like, hey, I needed background music for this second, and it'll generate the prompt for me to throw in there. And then like it'll give you like 2 or 3 options, and you pick the one, or you can expand, you can make it shorter, you can say it needs to be exactly a minute and 40 seconds long, and at 45 seconds, like at the trigger squeeze, right? You really need that uptick right there, that dramatic build to the bang. You can tell it when you need that to happen, and that's exactly when it'll happen. Rather
Wow.
than cutting the spot and stock footage, right? Up to the trigger squeeze, right? You found that perfect piece of music, you've got the build, you've got the peak, and then you're looking for that piece of music that fits. And I found myself, I was trying to cut around that music to generate that kind of dramatic moment to get to this piece in the timeline, right? So this is when the shot needs to occur right here, and you're cutting around that. Well, you don't have to do that shit anymore. With AI, you can go and make your own, and you never pay. You pay a yearly subscription, and it's unlimited. You can generate 1,000,000 tracks if you want to a year. It doesn't care.
No, that is amazing. Yeah, and good. I mean, geez, we shouldn't have to pay these people for so much money for music, and then we get copyright strikes anyway. Tell me, is there a way, and you might have to edit this out, but is there a way that you can put your license that you've bought into your YouTube channel so that it figures it out?
Nope. The algorithm doesn't care. It's just what's normally happened is somebody's used that piece of music several times, and originally somebody got a copyright strike against it because they used it without a license. So anytime I use it, and back in the day, I think they're on my toolbar. Hang on, I'll tell you. Epidemic Sound was one of them, and Vado was another one that I used. There was 3 or 4. So I would have to go down in my subscription, right, into that page, copy the terms and conditions with my name, my subscription number, and then send it to them, send it to YouTube for them to look at. And then maybe 3 or 4 days later, they actually did. If you get that strike, you have the ability to go in there and say, no, that wasn't me. And you can provide additional information. Half the time it works, half the time it doesn't. I got tired of spending all my time fucking with it and getting demonetized, so I switched over to a way that's foolproof.
Yeah,
you can even have it do it if you want just background music with just instrumental. You can do that. You can actually tell it to create lyrics too, and it'll create an entire song with lyrics for you. So you can customize it. Yeah, it's cool, but. And that's a perfect segue into this next section. So, as social media grows, right, and we kind of hit on this earlier, influencers play a real big role. I'm going to say a huge role in the hunting industry now, especially here stateside, and I see it a lot in Africa too. What's your take on influencers? Especially, and I'm going to get shit for this, but I'm throwing it out there because it pisses me off. Especially. Women who focus more on their appearance than they do in doing actual hunting. So I'll give you an example. So there's several of these, I don't know what her name is. Call her Ann Hunting or Ann Outdoors, right? And all it is her shooting a bow in a bikini, or her driving a lawnmower around in a bikini, or casting a fishing rod in a bikini. It's never actually hunting or fishing and all this other shit. But then she'll get a sponsor, right? To the sporting goods company that says, oh, you got to go buy this scent, or you got to go buy this tree stand because, I use it all the time. Where in the have you actually used a tree stand? I only see you in a bikini, shooting a bow or driving a lawnmower around for sake. And it drives me nuts because I spend so much time, and Mike does, and Paul does, on creating quality content and doing things the right way, and watching these chicks that just show ass, right? So their followers go from 0 to 1 million followers overnight, and everything they do is monetized now. So I've got a huge issue with that. That's one side of the influencer thing. The other side is, yes, there are some legit people out there that are doing it the right way, but from an industry perspective, does those kind of people, do you think they do more harm than they actually do good?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, that's clickbait, right? That's, and the reason they appeal to men is because they got a nice pair of titties and a super nice ass and, you know, zero cellulite, and every man is going to look at it. I mean, it's like a trap that's going to work every time, right? So,
I'm,
but I mean,
I'm guilty.
I don't
I'm
know.
absolutely guilty.
Yeah, you're always going to stop. Check that, carry on scrolling, whatever, man. We're all men. It's what happens. And they just clued on to this thing. So I think we'll never compete with those people. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to compete with, unless, sometimes I look at them like, geez, I should just get some little chicky boo to come and hunt, and I'll just film her, and then there you go, Bob's your uncle. Now I've joined the pack. I'm part
Well,
of the bikini pack.
and so there's that ethical dilemma, right? As content creators, right? So if I take this 6 foot tall hot blonde chick who probably can't hunt for shit, but it doesn't matter because nobody cares, and shows her on a spot and stalk and squeezing the trigger and then pose next to an animal, you know how many people are going to click on that? Like,
Oh yeah, big time.
it'll go crazy.
Bob's your uncle, mate.
But so I guess that goes back to, right, if you're doing it because you want to create quality content, you care about conservation, you care about the industry, you could do that to build a massive following, but is that really what you want to do in life? Right? So I think that's that moral dilemma there.
Exactly. Yes, 100%. It's crossed my mind 100 times. I mean, you see what works and what doesn't work. It doesn't take a genius. So yeah, you can do it. Maybe if I don't know, had a friend that was a super good hunter and she was a girl, then I'd film her. That's no problem. But like, I don't want to make it all about, I don't know. It's there to be done. I haven't done it. I don't know. Will I do it? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. But yeah, for sure, it's a fast track way to up your numbers.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want to paint the entire industry with a broad stroke, and nor do I want to paint a gender with a broad stroke. The however is, it seems like the vast majority of those females that are doing that, they don't fucking clue what they're doing, and they have no business being there. But it works for them, but because there's so many of those that are via just blowing up and being successful, my hat's off to the ones that are doing it the right way, that are out there hunting, that are putting in the time, that are, that have come up through the ranks the right way. And they go out there and they hunt, 300 days a year because that's what it takes to be successful. And they build it up over time, and they've done it morally. Right. So, they don't have to worry about, that beauty, right? That's fleeting. That's not gonna be there forever. You're not always gonna look like that. Eventually you're gonna get old and fat, chicks are gonna sag, and then what are you gonna do after that?
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I mean, what did they say? Money has no morals.
Yeah. Well, with that, do you think, do you see challenges in distinguishing, genuine hunters from those using those platforms for just personal promotion?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody knows, when you look at those people, you can see them straight away. I mean, most of them look like city girls in country girl clothing, or very little country girl clothing. But yeah, I suppose there are some good ones. I don't actually can't off the top of my head name any good ones. Although, like, we don't get the same TV you guys get, so who
Well,
would be a good one?
I'll give you one for example, and she caught some shit recently too. She's actually caught shit several times for hunting in Africa. But Melissa Bachman, the name of her show is Winchester Deadly Passion.
Yes, she's amazing. She is amazing.
She's
I've always liked that chick, and she's really nice as well. I met her actually last year, and I was flipping starstruck. It was amazing. She's so cool. And she's a good hunter, and she's got an awesome little family. She's really cool, yeah.
Yeah, and then another one. There's a show called The Crush with Lee and Tiffany Wachowski, and Tiffany is this hot little blonde haired chick, but she's like, so they're super in the whitetails. I don't even know. I don't think they've ever hunted in Africa that I'm aware of, but that chick, like, she can flat out hunt. It's like, for us, like, she's the OG of the, the females in the hunting industry. Like, she's
Yeah.
hot, but can get in there and get dirty and get it done and just grudge it out. And like, she always ends up killing monster whitetail every year. Her and her husband do. And there's several more that I can name off, but like, for whatever reason, Melissa always comes to mind because she just spends so much
Yes.
time in Africa and she's there back to back to back. And I think that's a good representation of doing it the right
Yeah.
way and having family values. And she's never just by herself. She's got her husbands with her. She's got her kids
Yeah.
with her, stuff like that. So she's showing that family environment. So she's not self-promoting in a degrading kind of way.
Yes. Yeah.
But
She's always dressed appropriately, and that chick works hard. She works hard, man. If you see at the conventions that she is running, boy, she's doing something.
yeah, for sure. Paul, you were looking away there for a second. Did you have something to add to that, or
No.
Mike? Did you have something to add to that, or did I throw us all under the bus sufficiently with those
No,
questions?
I mean, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on. So we spend a lot of time in South Africa. I've not hunted Central Africa yet, but we always ask our guests the same thing. You're obviously from more Central Africa. You hunt all through there. The question is Africa safe for international hunters? And what advice would you give somebody planning like their first safari, and especially going into your neck of the woods when it comes to safety? What would you tell that person?
So that is one of the biggest misconceptions, that Africa is dangerous. It's really not dangerous. Really, really not dangerous. Like, I mean, probably the most dangerous place is Johannesburg. If you go out of the, not by the airport and stuff and all that, is all fine. But it's like any city, you go to Chicago and you go to, I don't know what it's called, the Bronx or wherever, the dingy, dark, flippin' ghetto, whatever. You're going to get something going to go wrong. It's the same there in Johannesburg. But I mean, Africa is safe, man. And that's like one of the massive things that people, I meet guys in the States and get chatting or whatever, and they got lots of money and they're big hunters and they hunt deer and they hunt this and they hunt that and they go to Alaska and you're like, why don't you come to Africa? And they're like, Africa is dangerous. I'm like, it's really not dangerous. Like, and also the game here has got, the dangerous game, it's only dangerous when it gets wounded. Like, and then even then, it's not really your job as the client to finish it off. That's the professional's job. If my website breaks down, I don't try and fix it. I talk to the website guy and fix this thing. I fucked it up. So it's not even your job to go and follow the game. So it's whether it's the street danger or the bush danger, it's not dangerous. So, and then, if you're a first timer, then speak to people who have been loads of times, get some advice from them, do your research, and you'll be fine. I mean, you know what, to be honest, anybody's first time to Africa, it really, like I'm a perfectionist. I want it to be the ultimate safari every single time, right? But what I've come to realize is, because I've seen other people do it, just you can send someone anywhere, they're going to have the best time. I mean, the method of hunting here in Africa is so different to the method that you guys operate on. It's just it's so different and exciting that doesn't matter where you go, or, you're going to have a good time. It's, as long as you're with a nice person, you know what I mean? Sometimes a person can spoil everything. You can be in the paradise. If you're an asshole, then geez, you might as well be in hell.
No, that's true, and that's our experience too. Mike and I spent some time in Johannesburg this year. But everybody that we bring groups every year, so everybody's been to Johannesburg. Normally, we keep them out of the city. If we've got an overnight, we'll stay at Africa Sky, which is a short drive away. Schedule a VIP pickup. Everybody helps us with our bags, helps us get our guns in order. Dropped off the next morning, put on our flight. So. But you're right. Previous guest, Tony De Bruyn, who is the president of FASA, we had him on, And, we asked him the same question. He told us a story. He said, so he comes to the States every year and he drives from New Mexico to Wisconsin to go to hunt. And he drives through a little town or a little city called Chirac. And we all looked at each other like, what the fuck did he just say? He said, yeah, Chirac, Chicago, baby. He's like,
What?
Chicago. He calls it Chirac.
Okay, I thought, what the hell? I was like, is he mispronouncing it, or is he freaking? Oh God!
And he's right. There's places that us as Americans, like, I'm not going to the south side of Chicago. There's places in Bronx, Brooklyn, that aren't safe in New York, L.A. There's areas that you just stay the out of. San Francisco. There's areas there. Every major city has it. I live in Florida, for example. Miami has a very bad reputation for parts of it, but then when you get to South Beach, it looks like you're in paradise and you never see any of that. So I think it's it's being smart and staying out of those places, but your PHs and your outfitters, I think that's what most people don't understand. From the time you land, you're with those guys. Their job is to keep you safe, and for the most part, you're not going to see that. Are you going to see poverty? Yes, and that's one thing that I don't know how to sufficiently explain that to people. When you go to Africa, you're going to see poverty. We're living in a first world country, right? You're going to see some third world when you go to Africa. It doesn't matter. You're going to see it. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to be like, oh, Mike, for your first time, when you've got to drive through some of those areas. What was you're like,
yeah, it was definitely an eye-opening experience for sure.
And Paul, and it's strange because I don't even think about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's so normal for us to see it. So it's like I went to Argentina once, and I couldn't believe it. There was, I know it sounds terrible to say, but there's just like white people, like flipping homeless and like everywhere, lots and lots and lots, and shanty towns full. I was like, what? What is going on here? It was crazy. But like here in Africa, I'm like, oh, it's just a normal thing, But then when you come to the States or whatever, you don't see so much of it. So then I think for you guys coming here now, it's like kind of how I was in Argentina.
We saw many 10 cities for sure.
10 cities. Yeah, man. And it's funny because they've all got a little satellite dish on them as well. So they're like, hey, those tins have got some TV inside there, man.
And everybody's got a cell phone too. Everybody's walking around with a smartphone. Well, and then, we introduce everybody. It's kind of a funny because no matter where you hunt, you're going to go through one of those areas. But we joke, and I tell people, I try to stay with the groups the whole time. Even when the PHs are there initially, I try to stay with everybody. And the running joke in South Africa is you're like, hey, you see that plastic bag right there? They're like, yeah. I'm like, you know what that is? He's like, no. I'm like, that's the national flower of South Africa.
Yeah, no, for sure. Littering is a problem here in Africa. Oh, horrendous. But you're right. I mean, your operators are going to be with you like most of the time. They hold your hand, really. I mean, I had a group come out this year and they were like, but you were at the airport, you took us to the airplane, you came with us to the camp. I was like, yes, that's what we do. And like most people do it. You know what I mean? I'm no one special. So yeah, that's a funny thing. People think it's so dangerous here. But then once you come normally, now guys are like, yeah, now I want to up the last time. And then they just get hooked. And then it's, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've hunted with. They've been like, I can only afford one. I'm never going to do this again. And then they end up coming every year. And it's not a small hunt. It's like a 20 grand, full 10-day wild buffaloes and what. And, they could only afford it one time. I don't know if it's their sales pitch or they're trying to get a discount or what, but they end up coming back for the next 10 years in a row. I'm like, pal, you either got money from somewhere you didn't expect it or you just sold all your goods to come hunting.
Well, and I was guilty of that. And this was back in the early 2000s. We were at a NRA event in here where I live in Florida. And there was an African safari that went up for live auction, and the local director happened to be my good friend who was sitting at my table's brother, and he's like, "Hey, look, I'm looking around the room. I don't think anybody's going to buy this. I think it's going to go for like nearly free." And I think they opened the bidding at $500, and he raised his hand, and nobody else did, and it went on and on and on and sold. So we bought a trip for four for $500, which included I think $1,000 a person in game fees and some other stuff. So, but I didn't think, for me, even being educated, that Africa was something at that point in my life that was attainable. And so I was going to go, right. So I was going to, on my list, I had an impala, I had a warthog, I think maybe a hartebeest kind of thing. And that was it, right? Springbok, super cheap plains game package. And, this is all my budget's going to be. And then I ended up shooting, I think, 7 animals that trip instead of just the 3 or 4 that I had on the list. And with the exception of COVID, I've been back every single year since. Every single year I've been back. And this past year I was in country for 7 weeks straight. And which obviously most people don't do that. And I've been fortunate that I can come back every year. But every time somebody comes with me, and it's happened pretty much every time, somebody always says, "I'm going one time, right? This is my coup de grace trip. It's something I've dreamt over my whole life. I'm going to go ahead and do it once, and I'm done with it. I'm never going back." They always come back. Every single person comes back. It's never once and done.
100%. I think people also don't realize that South Africa is actually really affordable. South Africa, Namibia, even some places in Botswana, the private places, it's affordable, man. And you can get like, I don't know, 4 animals for like $6,000. It's like, even if you come and just do a cull hunt, come and experience Africa. You don't have to hunt the biggest trophy and go to the most expensive place and whatever. Just come and do it. Just come and check it out. You know what I mean? Don't be that guy who dies without even knowing.
Yeah, and we tell people that too, and we encourage groups to come over. And what happens, it's cyclical, right? So if you bring somebody over for their first time, and a lot of people are scared, right? They don't know. They don't know the ins and outs, and having somebody that's been several times, there's that comfort level. So they'll come with us the first time, and then all of a sudden they're rebooking again, and they're bringing their wife, they're bringing their kids with them, they're bringing their buddies with them, right? And then because it's all their first times now, and then after that their buddies are bringing somebody else next time, and to keep growing that kind of group. But the hardest part is getting somebody to go the first time. It's easy to get them to go back a second time, and the third time, and the fourth time.
Oh no! They start becoming a problem. You know what I mean? There's Andy, where's the next trip? Next trip, I was like, buddy, you just got home. Can you let me just finish my hunting season before we have to plan the next one, pal?
Well, and that happens. So every year before I'm gone out of country, I've already got the next one in the works and trying to book and schedule dates. I haven't even left the country yet, right? And I've already got shit booked for next year. And, I've got, okay, we're going to do 3 trips next year with 3 different groups. And so I already got, before I leave, I already know what I'm going to do, or at least close. Though 7 weeks is a bit much. That was, Mike, you were there with me for what, a month of that? Were you there a little over a month?
Yeah, I was there one less week than you.
Well, so you were there for over a month then. So you were there for 6 weeks, and I was there for 7. That's a long time to hunt in Africa, by the way.
Jeez, what did you guys all do?
I think
we do?
Yeah, we hunted in every province. I spent, so I'm down to, there's only one antelope species left in South Africa that I've not hunted successfully, and that's a sharp-faced buck. I've got all 9 of the tiny 10. With the exception of that, every antelope species has been hunted. So for me now, I need the sharps, and then it's moving to other countries. I want to chase a bongo. I want a lesser kudu. I want, a Thompson's and a Grant's, and is it Kafui or Kafu, the one with the long neck? Yeah, okay, yes. There's so many of those really cool species out there that I want to start.
You still got to do all your big game stuff too, though.
Yeah, but I can do that in any country. That's not just limited to South Africa.
You ain't started it though. I mean, you gotta.
I can do that.
Whilst you're picking up with the other goods, whilst you go look for your sharps, you can do a buffalo and a leopard or whatever.
Well, and that was one of the things, and we'll move on shortly, but one of your videos that caught my attention, I think you're in Mozambique hunting in the sand forest. And I remember you guys were on the back of a truck and you'd taken your shoes
Yes.
off. I think it was a Suni and a red diker hunt, maybe?
It was Suni, red diker, and blue diker.
Yeah. And so that was
Yeah.
such a cool video because I was just kind of getting started chasing the tiny 10. And then, because those
Yes.
permits are hard to come by in South Africa. And speaking of which, my PH is literally calling me as we speak on WhatsApp right now.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey, 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 Hannes.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, I'm actually
Okay.
filming a podcast with Andy Buchanan right now and Staffin and Paul. Can I call you back?
No problem.
All right, brother. See you.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
You'll get a kick out of
Yeah,
that.
no, those sand forests are awesome. And I mean, that area in particular is really good for the tiny 10 because you can pick up, I think it's 5 of them in one area. So there's not many places
Yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah, I've done all but the so 8 of the 9 that I've got so far have all been in South Africa. The Dik I went to Namibia for.
Okay, so what are you missing?
Just the sharps.
Just the sharps. Oh, so you've got 9 already.
I've got 9. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Oh, so
got,
the sharps
got
is
9.
it.
Yeah, and I spent a couple
so
weeks.
If you ever need a, well, I'm sure you know places, but there's one area in the Zambezi Valley called Chawari. Hell, you see so many damn shops. It's like, it's crazy, and it's funny because it's often the last one that guys have on the list. Hey.
Yeah, and I think I was the luckiest guy in the world. I was able to get, so back-to-back years, I got an Orby permit, I got a Suni permit, I got the Red Diker permit, I got the Sharps permit, just like I've never had to wait. Like I always get it the same year. And people will reach out like, how do you keep getting these permits? I'm like, I've got a good PH that just, I don't know how he does it. He just puts in the permits and he gets them for me every year. But, oh yeah, he is a hustler. But
Nice.
The Mozambique side of things. So I did the red and the Suni in KwaZulu-Natal in the sand forest there, and I can remember sitting down with my PH and and telling me because the canopy's so thick you got to get down low, which is why you guys were on the back of the truck too and spot them and jump off and be quiet. And I was telling him about this episode. So we're sitting at a base of a tree and we've got another hunter with us. My PH travels everywhere with me, but I had another PH with me from KZN. And, he's calling occasionally. And I finally had a place with some cell service. And so I pull up your video, right? And I find it. I'm like, this is how this is how Andy does it. Like, because we've been hunting for days for these fuckers, right? And it just, I'm like, this would just be so much easier if we could do this off the back of. Yeah. And our PH, old school guy, he was probably in his early 60s. He's hunted hundreds of them. He's just like, guys, listen. He's like, they're here. Trust me, it's going to happen. And we're days in, and like that's like just sitting in a small blind or sitting next to a tree. I'm not a sitter. I don't do it well. And but then when it happened, I ended up doing the Suni in the morning. Went back out that afternoon and maybe sat for 15 minutes and the red was done. So, but then I spent another almost 3 weeks of the trip hunting the sharps. Saw plenty of sharps females, just not a single shootable male. So, Yeah, I may have to come your way to do that.
Yeah. No, I mean, this area, I only saw it this year though. It was the first time I've been to that area. And I was like, ish. This place is full up. I mean, Zimbabwe, there's a lot of impala, but Sharps, Gracebuck in this area make impala look like scarce.
That's where I need to go right there. One last to finish it. And then apparently, then I can start over and try it with a bow. Good luck with that.
Wow. Yeah, I know for sure. Those little guys in that thick forest with a bow. Jeez. I mean, any thick bush with a bow is tough, isn't it? Because from what I imagine, if a branch just snicks one of those fletches, or then it throws it completely off.
It certainly does. It certainly does. But we've been at this for a while now. Let me kind of get down this list real quick. We're almost there. One of the things we talk about often is there's new technologies in hunting, right? So technology is evolving every day. And now we have drones. We have drones with thermal imaging. We have thermal optics. We have all these tools at our disposal to use. What do you think from an ethical perspective about those new tools? Should we be allowed to use that technology to hunt, or should it be relegated to a different part of the industry entirely, or not be able to use it all? And I'll preface this with, in the States right now, from a thermal drone technology perspective, there's a lot of people that are using it for animal recovery, and that whitetail deer was shot, maybe not a questionable shot. They bring the drone in. It can scan hundreds and hundreds of acres instantly with a thermal. They're using it to recover the animal and find it. But then there's also now thermal binoculars, right? So you can go out with a set of thermal binoculars, which are illegal in the States to use to harvest game. But you can go out before daylight, or when you're glassing big basins or something, even during the light, you can pick out all the heat signatures and you can see those animals and they're there. So there's all these different technologies that are coming out with and that are already in use. Where do you as a hunter draw the line on using technology like that?
So I think it's a difficult one. So I do quite a lot of problem animal control. So there it's really helpful, because a lot of these animals that are hanging around the villages, harassing the villages, they're only coming out at night when the villagers are going to sleep. So, without it, you got to try and use a flashlight, and everything just runs away from the flashlight. So I think with problem animal control, it's fine. With your cat hunting, I know guys are using it, but at the end of the day, not using it to shoot, but to just identify what the animal is, So each area is going to be given its quota of animals. So like say six leopard in 1 million acres. Okay. So then you're never going to shoot more than 6 because it's illegal to do so. So why not, make sure you're shooting the right ones and, have a bit of chance to identify it and not turn the light on and like, okay, shoot, because it might run away. Now you're going to wound it. Now you're putting people's lives in danger. Now the animal's going to be injured or whatever. Rather identify it nicely with your thermals or whatever, if you're allowed to hunt at night in that area in the first place. But I think putting a thermal rifle on your scope and going out and shooting a dagga boy that's grazing along the river that doesn't know you're there, and that to me is a bit like because I think you're also just robbing yourself of the experience of a real hunt where the animals might be able to get away. So I think at the end of the day, it's one of those things, again, it's going to probably end up being just like personal preference, if you want to spend your deer tag and go and shoot it with a thermal at night, crack on, I suppose. Or if you want to go out and challenge yourself and maybe have to sit for 3 days before you get your deer, then if you want to do that, then that's also fine. I suppose, it's, at the end of the day, you're going to get so many tags, and as long as people, not using it to go out there and shoot all the deers, that you're not supposed to shoot and be illegal, then maybe it's okay. Maybe some people are not so good at hunting as well, so they need a bit of a better chance.
Well, I'll give you an example. So you talked about these very large concessions that you guys hunt, right, with no fences. Some of them are 1 million plus acres. If let's say the outfitter puts up a drone to help locate the herd of buffalo rather than driving around or tracking for days and days and days, where you put up that drone to locate that herd of buffalo so you know where it is and save that time. Is that something that you think should be allowed, or is that still crossing the line?
No. I'm that, for me, I don't agree with that. I mean, if the buffalo's wounded, maybe, and it's there's a thick green bush, and you want to maybe try and fly over and see if you can see him in there, and you're potentially saving a life, or then I think that's fine. But if you're gonna fly your drone and go and find the animals, and then I think that's taking away from the hunt. I think, it's now a little bit unfair. Now you're an eagle and a human. So that's not so cool.
Well, and a lot of what I see on your show is what I envision to be more traditional style African hunting. You know, the way it was originally done. You know, you've got your Percivals and your old school guys like that, and that's kind of obviously technology's improved, our weapons have improved, our loads have improved. You know, we've got better bullets now, and I know you like that. I think Swift makes a really good bonded bullet too. Um, but you know, from what I see, your sub team is more traditional. You're not, bringing these celebrities in and shooting something from 1,000 yards. You guys are doing long spot and stalks, and you're looking for spoor, and you're tracking the herds. And how important is that to you to hunt that way?
Um, it's the only way I know. It's the way I was brought up. And also for me, it's the most fun way to do it. You know, if you can follow a track for 20 kilometers, a single Dagga boy track for 20 kilometers through leaves, over rocks, if you can do that and you find that guy and your wind is right and you manage to get a shot off, and yes, there's no feeling like it. There's no feeling like it. Whereas if you sat in a blind and shot a Dagga boy as he came and eat the lucerne that was left there for him, I mean, I guarantee you're not getting the same feeling. You might get the same. No, there's not even the same, because, or maybe someone be so happy with the horns on the buffalo that he's going to tell his friends that this buffalo charged and whatever, because, there's those people. But
Yeah, we met some of those this year.
Oh, yeah.
That story's for another episode, I think.
No, for me, it's the best way to do it. It's the most enjoyable way. I love the relationship with the trackers. We rely on them so heavily, and they're just masters of the bush. You can always learn something from a tracker if you're going to ask him some questions. And something that I've become quite fond of doing is letting the client have a go at tracking. Stop everybody, let him have a go. And if we will lose it for 5 minutes or whatever, we can help him a bit. We can find it again, carry on a little bit. And the feeling, and just being involved. And even if you're not the head tracker, if you're behind, you can also look around for a track or whatever. Often the trackers lose the track, and you sit down half an hour, maybe even an hour. Trackers are looking, it's getting hot, the flies. You can even get up as the client, walk around. You might often be the guy who finds that track that gets you back for the next 4-hour walk, and then you find and you kill that buffalo. And you'll often see, like, when guys have hunted a buffalo like that, they aren't even interested in the width of the horns. A lot of guys won't even ask, how big is it? They'll just be like, oh my goodness, what an absolutely incredible hunt. And then for me also, it's like, I'm not, for some of the spiral horns, like a kudu and like maybe like an oryx or whatever, it's quite fun to measure the horns and get a big one, you know what I mean? But for a lot, like for buffalo, especially for me, the more smooth those horns are, like if you see the one on my t-shirt, I love those drops as well. And you see how the ends are like worn off. The more it's worn off, like if his horns ended here, oh my goodness, there I am, like I am in buffalo heaven. Excuse me, my language. But like, so
And that was actually going to be my next question.
The way you hunt something is gonna produce how you feel at the end of it. So that's what hunting is for me. For me, hunting is not about shooting the biggest thing and whatever. That's not how I grew up hunting. It's different.
Yeah, and that's the African experience too. To go out there, I mean, you can do it off the back of a pickup truck. You absolutely can do it off a high rack. However, you can also do it this way. And what's going to be more rewarding? Well, you know what? Some people can't walk that long. Some people can't do it. If that's the only way they can get out there and hunt, so be it. I think I'm more with you. That's that experience that I want, and that was going to lead in. That question was going to lead in my next one, but I think you already answered it. So it was going to be, what is your favorite species to hunt? But I think I know the answer to that already.
Yeah, I mean, buffalo is always awesome, man. I love the walk. They're so clever, and like where they lie up is always they always know where you might be coming from or where the lions might be coming from, and they one will lie facing this. There'll be 3 duggar boys. They'll all be facing like perfectly another different directions. They smelling the wind, and it's the tracking. I mean, I'm a tracking nut. I love tracking. Tracking is the most fun thing for me. Even like when the trackers lose the tracks, I'm like, yeah, now it's my turn. I'm gonna find this thing, and then I'm gonna be the hero. I love it. But leopard hunting as well. Oof, leopard hunting is exciting. And it's like very monotonous because you're driving long distances to check the next bait that you put up earlier, or put another bait up, and there's nothing on here, and then eventually, damn, something's hit this bait, and then you see the track, and the track's nice, and then you get the camera and the pictures, and it's a brute of a leopard. And then you're like, and you're so high, you are so happy, and you're like, oh my God, he came in the daytime. This is it. This is our one. He's coming back. Let's build a blind. Make sure. And you're like, and I'm always like, come on, are we building in the right place? Because if the wind blows this way, if he comes in through this gully, where did he come in? Where did he go out? Where's the closest water? Where is he going to possibly come back from? And there's so much technical, like where to put the blind. Often you can have a fight with the party if there's like 3 or 4 people with different opinions. That's why at the end of the day, it's always the PH that makes the call. But you're always like, I don't know, I don't feel. So it's really exciting just setting up the whole thing, and then you sit and you wait now, and now it's quiet, and you're listening, and you hear the baboons, and you're like, okay, he's coming. The baboons are barking, the bushbucks start barking, and then he doesn't show up. And then you're like, well, now what? Is our bait in the, is our, like, did he go somewhere else? Is he moving there? Do we need to put another bait there? It's such a roller, and it's a thinking thing. Leopard, you got to be clever. If you're stupid and you take shortcuts with leopard, you're going to go without. And a lot of people spend a lot of time and a lot of money on trying to get a leopard. So leopard hunt is also amazing. But then also elephant. If you get up close to a big bull elephant, holy smokes. Your heart is going to, it's like your heart is in your ears, like, and it's just because you're scared of dying. This thing can kill me right now. So that is also, they're all cool. But buffalo, I mean, there's something about them, and just finding that big track, especially a lone duggar boy. Oof. And I like that guy because he's old, because the young ones won't go on themselves because they're scared of the lions and the predators. But the old ones, they're so aggressive and so cantankerous that not even another buffalo wants to put up with that guy. So he's old. So if you find him and you sneaky enough, you're going to get that nice old boy. So, and you don't know what his horns are going to look like. He might be a 44 wide, broomed off smooth, or he might be, you never know what he's going to be. He could be the buffalo of your dreams. You know what I mean? And it's just so cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, all right, let's finish up on this note on, so what's next for Andy? What's next for This Is Africa? And, what's next for TIA 5? I mean, that's kind of a fairly new venture for you, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, TIA 5 is my booking side, the booking of safaris. I never want to be a big booking corporation, because I think then you're going to lose your authentic safari feel, and I think that's not really, and it doesn't really appeal to me. I think I'd like to grow it a little bit, just get my nice base of clients that come out, and you become friends and all that. So that's for TIA 5. Just a couple more clients, and just the ones I still have, keep going with them. And then for TIA, the This Is Africa, the TV show, the YouTube channel. So I've always wanted to actually be a little more involved in front of the camera. I get very frustrated sometimes when I'm behind the camera and the person in front of the camera is not interacting with the audience, or not interacting enough, or not explaining enough, or whatever, not just the boring stuff, but like actually showing people things. You know, I always say there's a difference. The difference between a viewer, he can either feel like he's watching people hunt, or he can feel like he's hunting with you. And that there is now a difference. Because if you're not interacting with your audience and you're not chatting to them, they're gonna feel like, I'm not involved here. You know what I mean? They're gonna change the channel. But if they feel like they're involved, so one of the things I'm doing at the moment is going through the process of getting my Zimbabwean professional hunter's license. So, as we all know, it's a hell of a hard thing to do. So yeah, it take 2, 3, sometimes 4. I know guys who've taken 9 years, 10 years just to crack it. So yeah, who knows how long that'll take me, but I do hope to be guiding people one day. It's always been a dream of mine, and then also going to be doing a lot more problem animal control, which is fascinating for me because I love village people, I love villages, and I love the hunting, and I love the wildlife, and that's where it all meets, is in the problem animal human wildlife conflict zone. So it's something I really want to dive into in the future. Like life, you know, it's difficult to always achieve your dreams when you don't have the financial means. I mean, you guys, I'm sure you know, with the sponsors and whatever, it's very hard to keep sponsors happy, and you know, and it's hard to portray your dream to sponsors. You know, sometimes one sponsor wants this, and then the other sponsor doesn't want that, and it's quite a juggling, balancing act. But if you had $1 million in your pocket, you could make probably the coolest show on the planet of the earth. But not everyone got $1 million in the back pocket now, do we?
Right. And there is the rub for sure.
Yeah, and therein lies the toil of life. But so we'll try and get there eventually, but for now we got to kind of keep it how it is, but you know, always aiming for changing and evolving and doing what you can do.
So
what you want to do.
Are you going to do the show circuit this year? Are you going to come to SCI? Are you going to be at Dallas?
Yep. Yes, yeah. So we'll be at Dallas. At Dallas, I'll be with the Swift Bullet Company. Good old Bill Hober, he's the owner of the Swift Bullet Company. What an amazing man. So he was my first sponsor. I phoned him and I said, Bill, I want to make a TV show. Please, can you help me be a sponsor? And he said, well, I don't know you. So I said, yes, sir. My name is Andy. So he said, you have to fly here and talk to me if you want to. So I flew. I bought a ticket the next week. Bought a ticket, flew there, sat with Bull, and he's been an amazing, amazing man. He makes a hell of a good bullet, and he's just a great dude. I mean, he's 80-something years old. He just hunted. So he hunted with me. He hunted 3 dagga boys and a leopard, and he walked. Yes, he walked. And I thought he was going to die. I honestly thought he was going to die. And then this year he hunted a leopard and an elephant in Botswana. And I think he's 83, 84, 85, somewhere there. And he shot this elephant bull with a 5.77. Hey, can you imagine that? Boom. Yeah, but anyway, shame. He's done his legs in. So anyway, I'll be with him in the Swift Bullet Company booth. He's such a good time. And then I'll be with, I have my own booth in SCI, so that'll be fun. Don't know if I'll do Houston this year, but SCI is super fun because it's in Nashville as well. So, you know, to go to those bars and have some drinks and just joke around, it's so much fun. It's actually a problem. It's captured me 1 or 2 times before, and I don't know.
Yeah, it captured Sean. He got drunk, got lost, didn't know where to go. So
I figured this was
good, man.
I figured that was coming.
Good, man.
I like to have fun.
Yeah,
I like it a lot better than when it was in Vegas and Reno. I like Nashville I feel like it's more. It's where it's supposed to be now. You know,
I feel like SCI is on the up and up, to be honest. They are moving and shaking in some directions. This move to Nashville is the best thing, you know, because we, you know, in Vegas and what's that other place? Reno.
Reno.
Yeah, it was like Grand and Grandpa Fest. Oof, horrendous. But now, at least now it's in Nashville, there's a younger crowd. I'm meeting cool young American hunters that all want to come out to Africa. It's been good. I'm impressed with what they're doing. And hopefully the turnout in Dallas and Atlanta is good. It's always good in Dallas, but hopefully Atlanta doesn't chase anybody away, because I do like DSC as well. They're a good bunch of folk.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. So, Andy, tell our audience if they obviously, I'm going to link your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube pages, TV show. I'll link it all in the description. But if somebody wants to book a trip, wants to get a hold of you and talk about hunting in some of these cool countries where you're always at, how do they get a hold of you?
So I have a website, www.tiafive.com, tia5.com. Don't put the number, because if you put the number, it takes you to a Chinese porn site, and I don't think that's where people want to be.
Oops.
No, it's crazy. I had someone show me the link.
No wonder you have so many followers.
That's what it is, yeah.
Oh, man, that's crazy. But the website, and then all my info is there, and we can... normally you go on to WhatsApp. You know what I mean? I like when a client wants to book a hunt or whatever, talk to them on WhatsApp. You can actually phone each other, and it's much easier than, I know, I get it when it comes time to the serious stuff and the quotes and whatever, the emails are fine, but it's much easier just to talk on WhatsApp. Saves a lot of time. Tell me, are you guys going to be at any of the shows?
I think SCI for sure. And then if our schedule allows, we'll also do DSC.
All right, I'll make you a deal. You swap me one of your caps for one of my caps at
100%. Absolutely.
Thanks,
and then
guys.
let's go grab a drink one night on Broadway.
100%. But don't lead me astray, Sean. I'm easily led astray.
No, that's what I was going to. That's why that's why I got to bring Paul with me, because Staffen will let me get on the wrong fucking bus, won't you, Staffen?
Yep.
Yeah. Bring the bodyguards.
All right. Yes. Fuck yeah, I know better. Well, it's not the bodyguards. I'm not concerned about that. I mean, it's safe. It's the stupid shit that I'm going to do when I've been drinking that I'm worried about. Like I have a tendency.
Don't worry about it.
That's fair.
Yeah. We have all the, how it is, you got all the clients that are so excited to see you, and they just want to, most of them have got like really full pockets. So like buying drinks is not a problem. So it's,
I make friends at a bar easy.
We're trying to dodge the clients is the hard part.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps up today's episode. We hope this conversation with Andy Buchanan gave you a better understanding of how hunting can play a positive role in Africa's conservation efforts. Be sure to check out This is Africa and TIA5 to dive deeper into these issues and see Andy himself in action. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it to your fellow hunters and conservationists. Until next time, live free, hunt hard, and keep chasing the adventure.